What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 5 Knots. Chapter 81. Uchiha Makoto bid farewell to Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina and returned home. The three of them successfully completed the B-level task of eliminating the pirates on the run. Makoto. As soon as she opened the door, she saw Uchiha Fugaku. What's the matter? Makoto asked in a cold tone. Fugaku sighed slightly. Since Makoto opened her eyes, her attitude has undergone a subtle change. But it was different from the kind of pride and complacency he imagined because of the skyrocketing strength. He didn't understand what it was. I just felt that there was an invisible gap between him and Makoto. I heard that you were back. It just happens that the family meeting is about to be held. You are eligible to participate. Family meeting? Makoto nodded slightly thoughtfully. I'm going to attend with you. Okay. Fugaku smiled. The two rushed to Nanga Shrine immediately. Many tribesmen arrived earlier than them, and saw them greet them one after another. Those who can participate in the family meeting are all three Tomo Sharingan or Uchiha who has the ability of Jonin. So the number of people is not very large, except for those who go out to perform tasks, there are almost 30. Rao is so, and it has basically confirmed the name of Konoha's #1 ninja clan. After all, there are only a few hundred Jonin in the entire village. Father. Fugaku bowed. Well, sit down. Uchiha Kusaku, who was in the seat, smiled and glanced at Makoto again. Makoto, sit down too. Yes. Makoto sat down next to Fugaku. After a while, the long table in the hall was full of people. Everyone, please read today's newspaper. Uchiha Hisaku waved his hand, and a newspaper fell in front of everyone. Makoto condensed slightly. Learn from Obito. This is the teacher's handwriting, is there any intention? She began to think, and based on her understanding of Haruki, what he did must not be aimless. However, the clansmen in the shrine quarreled. What exactly does Hokage mean? Obito is well known for his talents, but he praises him so much. Is it because he specifically disgusts me Uchiha? I thought Hokage wouldn't be so boring. HMPH, Hokage and Danzo don't even want to see us at all. It's normal to disgust us. I suspect there is a conspiracy in this, Patriarch, we must not be careless. Makoto frowned. The resentment of this group is too great. They are so proud that they don't give anybody's face at ordinary times, even Hokage. As a result, the relationship became worse. She suddenly thought of what Haruki said to her. If you want to solve Uchiha's problem, you have to go to the masses. Makoto's mind moved. She understood that Haruki's operation was precisely to change Uchiha's image. Speaking by Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, the residents of Konoha village will definitely change their opinions of some Uchiha people because of the Obito story. Hokage is dead. My heart is not dead. The old man sitting in the lower left seat of Uchiha Kusaku suddenly spoke with a startling word. Elder, what's the explanation for this? Uchiha asked in amazement. Do you remember Uchiha Kagami, who was favored by second Hokage Senju Tobirama and inherited the so-called Wolf Fire? The elder smiled coldly, with disdain on his face. At that time, many people thought that our relationship with Hokage would improve as a result, but what was the result? Some people became Uchiha traitors, Hokage's lackeys. Now, it's just a repeat of the old trick. As soon as he finished speaking, the shrine became lively again. Makoto was silent. She suddenly had a feeling of talking to a duck. The people in front of her thought completely different from her. They indulge in the glory of the past, and thus do not examine themselves. She glanced at Uchiha Fugaku next to him again. His expression seemed a bit tangled. He wanted to say something but he didn't dare to say it. It's kind of saved. The reason why Makoto's attitude towards him is quite cold is because she feels that the two people's ideas do not match. If she wants to implement Haruki's philosophy, she will inevitably conflict with the Uchiha people on the scene. But she knew that Haruki's approach was correct. She suddenly smiled. The Finches know their ambitions. Makoto rubbed his forehead, too lazy to listen to the quarrel. What's the matter? Fugaku couldn't help asking when he noticed her movement. Nothing. Makoto raised his eyelids and said faintly, Fugaku, you want to be my boyfriend. Your current performance alone is not far away. What? Fugaku was confused by her sudden sentence. But Makoto didn't speak anymore. She made up her mind at this moment to change the Fugaku and Uchiha clan. Old antiques occupy the past, and they are a brand new future. Tsunade. Haruki pushed the door in, walked directly behind her, hugged her. Don't work on a good weekend. You want to be lazy again. Tsunade put down the pen and flicked his forehead. Don't bother me. Let's go shopping. Haruki pondered for a moment and said, do you remember what I told you the other day, take you to buy clothes? Now. Tsunade also remembered this thing, saying when he massaged her feet. Well, now. Haruki reached out and took her little hand. You promised me. All right. Tsunade smiled helplessly and dozingly. Then I have to say in advance, since it is my choice, you can't have any opinions. Haruki pulled her up and walked outside the door. This won't work. Tsunade leaned on the wall to change his shoes, then turned his head back and gave him a blank look. If you choose any messy clothes for me, I won't wear them. Haruki was stunned for a moment, but he was not embarrassed to be seen through the routine. At least two people agree? It's pretty much the same. Tsunade nodded, smiled and stretched out a small hand. Haruki glanced at her delicate face, held her hand, and walked towards the clothing store. This home. He pointed to the empty clothing store in front of him that occupies a huge area. Tsunade did not doubt, and followed him into the shop. I'll choose clothes for you, you change them, you buy them as you like, how about changing them if you don't like, Haruki suggested. Okay. Tsunade looked at the dazzling array of clothes and did not refuse. The first one. Haruki swept around, picked up a kimono and handed it to her. Tsunade glanced at it and thought it was okay, so he ran to the changing room for a fitting. How about it? She lifted the curtain and turned it around. The light red kimono wraps the body, the pattern is complicated and gorgeous, with the sakura flower pattern as the main thing, but the only thing that is not good is that it hides her graceful body, only revealing the white and delicate neck and bare feet. Very beautiful, Haruki praised, and brought a second dress. I knew it. Tsunade glared at him when he saw the cheongsam, but did not refuse. This time it took a long time before she came out. Haruki couldn't help swallowing. The fresh and elegant cyan cheongsam is very close to the body, with the feeling of waves shaking in every move. The embroidered plum cage plum blossoms at the ankles, revealing crystal transparent short heels, barefoot refracting light, vaguely unrealistic. This is good. Haruki nodded and got Tsunade's Byakugan. Give me the next dress. Okay. Haruki removed a piece of dead reservoir water from the hanger. Haruki. Tsunade glared with hands on hips. Do you think I can wear this kind of clothes? This one is actually smaller in size. Haruki touched his chin, gave up the swimsuit, and found an evening dress. Tsunade slapped his head hard. Just tease me. She turned around and entered the changing room. After a few minutes, Haruki's eyes widened. The pure white evening dress reveals the shoulders in the northern hemisphere, and is tightened down to the waist, showing a perfect hip shape. A large number of three-dimensional white flowers were sewn together, all the way to the edge of the skirt, but just reached the calf. Wearing bluish-white high heels barefoot, forming an anklet on the ankle. It's beautiful, Haruki murmured. Tsunade couldn't help smiling when he saw his dementia. It's not in vain that she changed her clothes to hold back her shame. Return to mind. Tsunade leaned forward and squeezed his face. As he leaned over, Haruki had a sweeping view of the stalwart abyss. Well, there is one last dress. Hey, you have enough. Tsunade stared at him with dissatisfaction. If she weren't wearing high heels, she would definitely step on the foot of the sunny tree. I really don't know where this guy has so much nasty fun. It's not a strange dress, it's a kimono. Didn't you just wear a kimono? Tsunade was a little strange. This. Haruki took off a white kimono and stuffed it in her hand. Tsunade was stunned, and suddenly his heart beat faster. This is by Wugu, which is the wedding dress. Why? Don't want to wear it. Haruki leaned forward, almost clinging to her. He clearly felt Tsunade's rapid breathing. Willing. Tsunade's voice was so small that it was almost inaudible. What did you just say? Haruki moved a little away, and said with a smile, I didn't hear clearly. Tsunade bit her lip, but inexplicably no tension, replaced by a feeling of throbbing. She just looked at him and said softly after a few seconds. Kiss me. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 82. Xian Hu Yuma Yu Yuan Lu Guan Rakuten Travel HK, 541 Hong Kong dollars Rakuten Travel, Ri Ben Xing Ne Ling Xian Wang Sheng Lu Xing Shi. Tsunade's voice was soft, but not trembling at all, and the eyes looking at him were affectionate and firm. Haruki stayed on her face for a few seconds, slowly approaching her, and holding up her white and smooth face. The next moment, a soft touch came from her lips. He sniffed lightly, and there was a faint fragrance around him. Smells good. Girls are always so sweet and soft. Unlike previous feelings, Haruki's mood is calm and beautiful at this moment. The two seemed to be a whole, able to clearly hear each other's heartbeat and guess each other's thoughts. Haruki stepped back slightly, and suddenly smiled. Aren't you doing your eyes? Look at me so straight without blinking. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Tsunade is a little confused. Are you here to spoil the atmosphere? It's so cute. Haruki saw her expression and heartbeat beat, and drew it in front of her, held her head, blocked her mouth, and took a few mouthfuls comfortably. Well, the smell of oranges. Tsunade was overwhelmed by the offensive he had caught off guard. She was stunned, and noticed that Haruki winked triumphantly, suddenly a little angry. You turned around. She ordered bluntly. What are you doing? Haruki asked, but turned her back obediently. Tsunade immediately jumped up, wrapped his hands around his neck, the weight of his entire body pressed against his back, and his slender legs were resting on his waist. Haruki subconsciously hugged her soft buttocks to prevent her from sliding down and falling. Punish you for carrying me back. Tsunade lay on his ear to talk, and Haruki tickled with the heat he exhaled. What kind of punishment is this? Haruki couldn't help laughing when she heard her a little angry. Don't laugh. Tsunade immediately covered his mouth. Ruuruu's scent lingered in his nose. Haruki licked her finger. Ah, it's disgusting. Tsunade wiped his saliva on his shoulder. Hey, you weren't like that when you first kissed you. Haruki raised his eyebrows and protested loudly. You just owe it. Tsunade blushed. Don't go back yet. Silly girl, don't you really want to go back in this evening gown, do you? You do, and I don't want to. Haruki turned her head slightly, her gaze just covered her lips. The pale lipstick glowed slightly under the light. It looks extremely tempting. Tsunade's expression suddenly became stiff. She remembered her evening dress, bare shoulders and back, even showing a half ball. Come down first. Haruki patted her ass and slowly let her fall to the ground. Go change clothes. He stroked Tsunade's cheek. I can only enjoy such a beautiful scenery by myself. What are you talking about? Tsunade glared at him and snorted dissatisfiedly, vulgar. I am a layman. Haruki hugged her in his arms again, with a particularly comfortable sensuality, which made him use a little force while slowly sliding his right hand over the butterfly bone on her back. Do you not like it? I don't like it. Tsunade was talking, rubbing his head against his side face, feeling her perfectly lined back exposed to the air being touched by the warm breath. Quietly, there is a quiet ambiguity. But I like you. After a while, a sweet but slightly shy smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Yes, me too, Haruki whispered, and he wasn't doing anything wrong, just hugging her. I don't know how long it took. My feet are panicking. Tsunade was dissatisfied and kicked Haruki's thigh. It's the first time I wear this kind of high heels. Sit down and I will take it off for you. Haruki released her, then squatted down, pinching her ankle with one hand and taking off the crystal high heels with the other. You are all to blame. Tsunade stepped barefoot on his hand. I won't wear this kind of shoes next time. Then don't wear it. Haruki turned around. I will carry you to the changing room. Tsunade immediately threw himself on his back and hugged him. Taking advantage of Haruki again, he walked out of the 3-meter road for a few minutes, and finally entered the changing room after slapping Tsunade's thigh a lot. You change your clothes, I'll go out first. Haruki squeezed her face. After he left, Tsunade suddenly opened the shutter, revealing half of his head, and said, no peeking. Quote? I didn't plan to take a peek. But when you say this, you seem to be tempting me. Haruki touched his chin, approached the changing room quietly, and then stopped in front of his eyes with a punch-big fist. I knew you were a thief. Tsunade's triumphant tone came from behind the rolling curtain. You did it on purpose. Haruki looked at her clenched fist suspiciously. No, obviously you want to take a peek. Tsunade wouldn't admit it, the corners of her mouth curled up, and it's rare to let this guy cripple. Haruki was slightly taken aback. Is this guy getting the hang of it? Actually know how to tease him. I'm definitely not peeking anymore. He spoke a few steps back. Really? Tsunade showed his small head again and blinked his right eye. Do you really want to look at it? Quote. Don't overdo it. You can't bear the fate of seducing a man. Haruki gave her a white look and said, change your clothes, you say one more thing, then you will not be able to walk. Tsunade shrank his head, and felt that he was so frightened to lose face, so he threatened, if you dare to do it, I will kill you. After speaking, he opened his mouth, revealing a row of white teeth. But before Haruki responded, she pulled down the curtain and dared not look at him again. She touched her chest, felt her heart beating frighteningly fast, took a deep breath, and began to take off her evening dress. After waiting for a few minutes, Tsunade changed into his usual clothes. The boss, who didn't know where to go before, appeared with a smile at this time, packed the clothes that Tsunade tried to wear, and handed it to Haruki. Tsunade finally realized that something was wrong. Did you premeditate? I can find it now, which means you are not stupid. Haruki spread his hands. Damn it. Tsunade blushed suddenly, a little incoherent, and said angrily, you're an idiot. Haruki walked up to her with a smile and hugged her. Go home, my wife. Don't shout, I haven't agreed yet. Tsunade turned his head and took a bite on his neck, you bastard. But it is very light, almost useless. Carry me back, and I will promise you. She snorted, pushed him away, and opened her arms again. Haruki resisted the urge to kiss her, turned around, and pressed her softly behind her back, hugged tightly by Tsunade. It's really a loss to sell myself on this condition. Haruki teased her and said, would you like to add some? Okay. Tsunade was also polite, her face leaning against Haruki's shoulder, I want to think about it. It's okay. Don't worry, think slowly. Haruki walked towards the house with her on his back. I thought about it. Tsunade rubbed against his side face. The condition is that the first person I see when I wake up every day from now on must be you. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 83 Before Dawn. The early morning sun shines through the windows, covering the floor of the room with gold. Tsunade opened his eyes and saw Haruki in front of him, and his dazed spirit came to his senses. She smiled lazily, Well, the goal of the first day, you have completed it. It's just that someone slept too badly, and the arm that pressed me sore. What? You wicked complain first, who is not honest? Tsunade grabbed his right hand that was in his pajamas and gave him a Byakugan. Haruki pretended to be puzzled. I don't know what happened. I don't control my hands when I sleep. Quibble. Tsunade got up and urged, you go out first, I'll change my clothes. Okay, I'm going to serve breakfast. Haruki didn't tease her anymore. He went to the kitchen and put the lean meat porridge cooked in advance in a bowl. The taste is still so good. After Tsunade finished washing, he held the bowl, took a sip, and smiled happily. Haruki stretched out her fingers and scratched the bridge of her nose. I always think you always think of me as a child, I'm not young anymore. Tsunade gave him a blank look. This is called petting. Haruki handed her a small spoon. Count you barely pass. Tsunade laughed softly. A breakfast is over quickly. Haruki waited for her to wash the dishes, took her by the hand, and came to the ninja school. He got news yesterday that Namikaze Minato and the three have completed their mission and returned to Konoha. After class, he led Uchiha Obito to the third exercise field on weekdays. Teacher. Uzumaki Kushina waved and jumped all the way. Morning. Haruki smiled. It's almost dusk, how early is it? Kushina curled her lips. Haruki knocked on her head and greeted Minato and Mikoto again. Finally, I introduced Obito and said, Minato, this is the apprentice I'm looking for, Uchiha Obito. My apprentice. Namikaze Minato was stunned. Teacher, I'm Shunin, and this guy is too young, didn't he graduate? Future apprentice. Haruki explained, you and Mikoto took him to train first. Now, due to his age, the total amount of chakra is not very large, but he can teach some usages of physical skills and ninjas. Okay. Minato and Mikoto nodded and did not refuse. Minato believes in Haruki's vision and wants to come. Obito is not a simple child. Mikoto knows that Haruki wants to cultivate Obito. As a representative of changing Uchiha's image, she is naturally willing to help. Besides, she also knew Obito's situation, which was very pitiful. What about me? Kushina looked at Haruki dissatisfied, I can teach him too. Wait until you learn all the sealing techniques Mito-sama taught you. Okay. Kushina tilted her head and hummed softly. Well, Obito is here anyway, you can point him if you have nothing to do. Haruki couldn't help but smile when he saw her reaction. Kushina immediately became excited. Just when you came back, there is one more thing. Haruki touched Kushina's red hair and said, it will come in a few days in July. I plan to set up an organization on the 1st to integrate my messy chambers of commerce. The three of you are also eligible to join, if you want. Quote. Naturally willing. The three answered quickly. At the ferry where the Shinam River flows through our Konoha, you will see a boat at that time, and we will hold it on board. Okay. Although they didn't understand why the location was on the ship, the three of them wouldn't care about these details. Teacher, can I participate? Obito finally couldn't help but interject. Waiting for your graduation. Haruki did not refuse, making Obito breathe a sigh of relief. After the matter was finished, Haruki did not linger. Give Obito to the three of them and let him experience Genin's life in advance. Don't look at the way they usually talk very well, but under the influence of Haruki, Minato and the others are quite strict in training. Well, Obito can enjoy it. After that, Haruki went to the Research Institute, Hyuga's house, and Konoha bookstore to notify him, and then sent a message to the Oshima Chamber of Commerce in the distance. In fact, there are not many people. In his opinion, Namikaze Minato has the highest level, and the others are slightly worse. But development does not happen overnight. First determine the goal, and everyone will move forward together. Someone will join or some will leave on the way, but the road will not change. If you go forward and succeed, someone will always reach the end. After the organization is established, more advanced ideas and theories can be spread. The more they understand the truth about the world, they will unconsciously influence more people and eventually gather into a huge force. However, the establishment of an organization is not a lip service, it has a lot of preparatory work. Take the Shao organization as an example, the uniform clothing, the ring that represents the identity, the organizational structure of the two in a team, and the common goal, making money, catching a tail beast, and peace in the ninja world. The organization of Haruki is naturally more complicated. In addition to the above, there are organizational flags, membership oaths, division of labor for each person, and organizational rules that must be followed. Akatsuki is essentially a loose organization. And these things, Haruki cannot be handed over to others, he can only complete them alone. Although he had frequent contacts in his previous life, the workload was still not small. Haruki returned home and started writing. Based on the memory of previous lives, I initially worked out what this organization needs to do and how to do it. This is the most important. The reason why Wall of Fire looks like a castle in the air is because neither Senju Hashirama or Sarutobi Hiruzen knows the right way. The former is too naive, the latter is too incompetent. What are you writing? Tsunade was a little curious. As usual, she had been found before she approached. I forgot to tell you. Haruki patted his head, everyone told it, but he didn't think of Tsunade. This is the so-called black under the lamp, as his girlfriend, Tsunade must join. Otherwise, with such a big secret blocking them, there will be problems in the future. I am going to create an organization. Haruki thought about the language and talked about his purpose. Fortunately, he took Tsunade to Sunagaku. After Tsunade saw what he was doing, he had an expectation in his heart, but he was not particularly surprised. I support you. Tsunade leaned on his shoulder, no matter what you do. Hey, don't make it seem like I'm going to take you to do something bad. Haruki patted her face. What's more, what we are going to do involves a bright future for tens of thousands of people. Tsunade looked at his spirited appearance and couldn't help but kiss him. She likes Haruki's unreasonable self-confidence and seemingly impossible ideals. At this moment, she inexplicably had a kind of herself as if a moth pounced on the burning candle of the sunny tree. Ask a recommendation ticket. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 84 Red Dragon Banner. After a few days of exploding liver, Haruki barely achieved the goal. When combing through extremely cumbersome theories and plans, he deeply felt the greatness of his predecessors. He has the memory of his past life and the plug-in of this life, so he has come to this step. But they have built a new and great country from scratch. Haruki could not imagine, but he admired and respected very much. The first day of July. Konoha's sunshine was exceptionally bright, and the golden color followed with warmth, awakening the smoke in every household. The world is recovering. Haruki and Tsunade arrived at the designated location early. A medium-sized sailing ship. The mast hangs like three white clouds, and there is no wind at this time, it hovering quietly on the surface of the river. In addition to sailing ships, the original works include steam ships and electric ships. But it's not necessary, the sailboat is enough. Haruki Chakra stepped on the water and crossed the river to board the ship, but did not enter the cabin, and set up tables and stools by the sunlight. After a while, Namikaze Minato, Uchiha Makoto and Uzumaki Kushina arrived. As if it were a signal, Oshima Yoshiyuki, Okikai, Hiroshinji, and Hyuga Hiyashi boarded the boat one after another. With Haruki, there are 9 people in total. Among them, Hyuga Hiyashi is the most confused, he doesn't even know Oshima Yoshiyuki and others. Originally, he was not qualified to participate in the meeting. However, taking into account the current reforms of the Hyuga family and the good relationship with them, Haruki gave him a place to attend. Judging from the current situation of the Hyuga family, Hyuga Hiyashi did not dare to betray him. Sit down, everyone, don't be cautious. Haruki knocked on the table and said with a smile, there is no such thing as a seat, just find a spot. The Minato 3 moved first and sat down one by one on the left side of Haruki, while Oshima Yoshiyuki and others naturally sat on the right side. Hyuga Hiyashi took a step slower, and bit the bullet and sat directly opposite Haruki. Everyone has been notified in advance and can explain that they have agreed to participate in the organization. Haruki looked around for a week, everyone with a listening expression, he nodded and continued. This meeting involves many motions, but because everyone is the first time and has no experience, plus the initial stage of creation, I will do it for you. However, before I talk about the motion, I want to announce a permanent rule. Our organization is different from other organizations. All those who board the ship are like-minded friends. They have no background, strength, money, and everyone has the right to vote. To put it simply, I or a future member proposes a motion, and the people at the meeting vote. Each person has only one vote, and more than half of the motion is passed. Otherwise, it will not be passed, but it can be put forward again at the next meeting. Quote. Haruki stopped talking, leaving them time to react. The 8 people at the table looked at each other. They understood the voting. After all, they knew the Hokage selection process, but that was the process after all, and the final decision was in the hands of Konoha's senior management. Otherwise, there won't be several generations of Hokage either as a master or apprentice or a close relative. The meaning of Haruki clearly means that everyone has the same voting rights. In other words, they can even join forces to veto Haruki's motion. This had a great impact on them. The first motion is now. The name, pattern and logo of the organization should have uniform clothing, but the time is too short to design, so I will talk about it next time. Haruki took out a scroll and 9 diamond kunai. The scroll is the pattern of the organization, and the diamond kunai contains Flying Thunder God technique, which is both a symbol and a life-saving thing. While distributing the kunai, he said, this organization is single-named Sha, and it is summer, when the sun is at its strongest. The so-called sun is fierce, all things appear, and all ghosts and sprites die out. As for the pattern or the flag, I call it the Chalong banner. Quote. After speaking, Haruki spread out the scroll on the table. A lifelike dragon was about to take off surrounded by hammers and sickles. What do the hammer and sickle stand for? Namikaze Minato asked. The hammer represents the workers, and the sickle represents the farmers. After Haruki explained, he smiled again, this is about the purpose of our organization. It's actually very simple, so that everyone has equal opportunities. Namikaze Minato opened his mouth. Simple. Are you afraid of any misunderstanding? I don't understand. Hyuga Hiyashi hesitated and raised his hand, saying that he shouldn't ask this question logically, but since he joined, he can understand it clearly. Why are we doing this? This question is good. Haruki thought Hyuga Hiyashi wouldn't dare to ask. After all, he hadn't listened to the ninja school's course, and he hadn't followed him, so it was normal that he couldn't understand it. But it's not clear for a while now, and you will get the answer to your doubts in a few days. After seeing Hyuga Hiyashi nod his head, he patted the table and said, the first bill agrees to a vote by a show of hands. All 9 people including Haruki raised their hands. Okay, the bill is passed, and now we will start the second item, which is how to solve Hiyashi's problem. Our organization will hold learning meetings every month, and all formal members must attend. The content of learning is the purpose, program, and plan of our organization. Thoughts, etc. Any objections? Haruki looked around, because there was a question from Hyuga Hiyashi earlier, and they had no opinion on this proposal. The only thing that is slightly puzzled is the high frequency once a month. Is there so much to learn? But due to Haruki's majesty, doubts were temporarily suppressed. Especially Hyuga Hiyashi, he had no idea that he would still study after leaving the ninja school. Okay, the third motion, I think everyone is more concerned about the division of labor and appointments. The expressions of the 8 people suddenly changed slightly. The 3 people including Oshima Yoshiyuki followed him for the longest time. Tsunade is similar, but because of Haruki, she is a type that doesn't care much. Namikaze Minato and Uchiha Makoto have their own goals, so you should be more concerned about them. Hyuga Hiyashi is more curious, what he can do like an outsider. And Uzumaki Kushina is the only scumbag among the crowd. He is a little faint and feels too complicated. Before the formal appointment, let me explain the rules of our election. At least 3 candidates are nominated by full members, and the vote is taken. The person with the highest number of votes is elected. The term is changed every 5 years, including the highest leader of the organization. Haruki said seriously, all the rules I said today will be written into the organization's rules and regulations, and no one can violate them. Hyuga Hiyashi was stunned. He has never seen anyone willing to put a lock on his power, even trapped in a cage. The strangest thing was that of the 9 people present, it seemed that he was the only one who expressed doubts about this. What is wrong with me? Or is the whole organization abnormal? Hyuga Hiyashi fell into suspicion. Because it is the first session, this procedure cannot be implemented. I will nominate today. If it fails, I will change to another person. Haruki smiled slightly. The first position, the leader of the organization, I nominate myself. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 85. There was no objection and it was passed unanimously. The second position, the head of the finance department of the organization, manages all the proceeds excluding external equity participation, including the Oshima Chamber of Commerce, Konoha Bookstore, Jinyu Liangyuan, Maojia, and the future Desert Fruit, etc., and establishes a new bank to use to store and use revenue to maintain the normal operation of the organization. Haruki briefly explained the duties and responsibilities in a few sentences. Although ninjas abide by the ninja guidelines and take the completion of tasks as their main purpose, and don't pay much attention to money, they will be tempted in enough cases. The few people present at the scene knew more or less about the store or company that Haruki said. The money made by the popular Konoha bookstore alone may be a fortune that Jonin will not be able to obtain in his entire life. However, after hearing Haruki's nomination, he lost his thoughts again. Tsunade didn't expect it to be herself. She waved her hand and said, I can't manage the money. I can't do this work. When it is handed over to me, the money will only get less and less. Haruki couldn't help laughing. If it weren't for the meeting, he really wanted to say that you would be pretty self-aware. Tsunade glared at him. Did he make fun of me? The right leg under the table stepped on his foot. Haruki suddenly smiled and said, don't worry, you are the head of the department, and now you are just an empty shell, and you will be transferred to you by then. Hearing what he said, Tsunade let go of his foot. The third position is the Minister of Organizational Security and Intelligence. I propose Hira Shinji. He has ice escape and has entered the roots. This position is more suitable. Haruki looked at Shinji Hira and smiled. Facts have proved that brainwashing at the roots is also difficult to transform a ninja with red thoughts. The only trouble is the curse imprint on the root, and the tongue will never end. Of course, it was also because Haruki informed Danzo about his roots in advance. Okay, the fourth position, Minister of Publishing and Propaganda Department, is held by Ogi Kai. Haruki glanced, no one objected, and he continued. Next is the Minister of Commerce, responsible for organizing all internal and external economic exchanges. I nominate Oshima Yoshiyuki. As before, no one disputed. In fact, Haruki also knew the result. His current prestige was so high that some people followed him blindly. There is one more thing, Yixing, you have to proceed. We should have established a ninja and technology research department, but there is no suitable candidate for the time being. Most of the researchers who joined the institute are because of our rich remuneration and lack of ideas. But remember that our organization must unite all the forces that can be united, and do not kill them all. Anyone who agrees with us is a friend. Of course, the premise is to go through investigations and not to trust outsiders at will. I intend to set up a 100-person plan for research and list these outstanding researchers as targets. For example, Orochimaru. His obsession is too deep, he is destined to be unable to agree with the philosophy of our organization, but he can make a great contribution, you can join this project. Yixing. What you have to do is to draw up an appropriate agreement for everyone, including issues such as cooperation projects and treatment. Quote. Okay. I understand, Oshima Yoshiyuki replied immediately. The sixth position, the head of the army, to form our army, I propose Namikaze Minato. Seeing another unanimous vote, Haruki's mouth showed a smile. They did not realize the role of the army at all. In other words, in their cognition, the army is similar to the existence of the ninja coalition army. He felt his advantage again. The ninja's army is certainly strong, but it is inferior to the previous life in terms of division of labor, orders and prohibitions, and military strategy. Regarding the specific matters of the army, I will give you a detailed explanation after the meeting. Then the seventh position, the clerk, I propose Uchiha Makoto, who is mainly responsible for organizing the notice, record and summary of all meetings. After Haruki finished speaking, he noticed Makoto's expression and felt a little lost. Because from the current situation, the clerks do all simple hard work, which is far from the previous positions. But Makoto did not refuse, and nodded. In a sense, she is very pragmatic and does not fight or grab. Haruki quite likes her character. However, what she didn't know was the importance of the clerk, who could almost be regarded as the one with the most power besides him. Haruki didn't explain, and it's hard to convince her now. She will understand that this position is not as simple as it sounds. In a short while, Makoto may become the second person in the organization to fully comprehend the dragon-slaying technique. Haruki did this, considering the situation of the Uchiha clan. Hope Makoto can really change them. Otherwise, even if the Night of Genocide cannot be ushered in, it will be difficult to integrate into Konoha. At present, our organization is initially established. These departments will be set up temporarily, and new departments will be established according to the actual situation. As for the remaining two, Hyuga Hiyashi assists Oshima Yoshiyuki, and Uzumaki Kushina assists Namikaze Minato as a deputy. You can have objections. Kushina nodded sullenly, she felt that she hadn't been taken seriously. In fact, it is the same. Her character caused her not to be as mature as Minato. Haruki asked her to serve as a deputy for this reason, and I hope she can understand it under the leadership of Minato. Hyuga Hiyashi is dissatisfied. His next dignified patriarch Hyuga actually served as deputy to someone else, and it would be too embarrassing to say it. It would be fine if it was Haruki, but he was still an unknown person who had never heard of it. Haruki-sama, I don't understand economics, and I may not be able to help. Hyuga Hiyashi said after considering the sentence. What you said makes sense. Haruki didn't feel angry, he expected Hyuga Hiyashi's reaction. He smiled and said, well, Hyuga Kaoru serves as an assistant to the Ministry of Commerce, and how about you as the Minister of Infrastructure and Transportation? Good. Although Hyuga Hiyashi doesn't quite understand what this department is going to do, he is a minister anyway. After the others passed the vote, Haruki's face became serious. The last item of this meeting is about the issue of the organization's subsequent joining of members. Haruki took out 9 scrolls and distributed them in front of everyone. This is the organization's rules and regulations that I have drawn up. Because there are a lot of content, I won't mention it at the meeting. You will find time to memorize it after the meeting. Our organization Wooden Sign has 9 full members, and each member has the qualification to nominate a candidate member, up to 3. Perform the assessment procedures in accordance with the organization's regulations, pass the results, and become a full member after 3 years. Nominations are made now. If no one is selected, they can be nominated next time. I propose Uchiha Obito, Hitaki Kakashi, and Nohara Lin. Quote. I don't have it for the time being. Tsunade shook her head and said. She wanted to say Jiraiya, but it was impossible. I suggest Hyuga Kaoru. Hyuga Hiyashi said. I propose Uchiha Fugaku. This is what Makoto said. Anything else? Haruki waited for a while. If not, today's first meeting is over. Makoto, you have to record the content of today's meeting and make a summary. Okay, teacher. Makoto nodded. Oh yes, and there. Haruki seemed to think of something, and took Tsunade's hand. The first major event of the establishment of the Shaw organization is the marriage between me and Tsunade. Please help us to organize it. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 86 The Right Use of Nine Tails. Although the organization is established and the structure looks similar, Haruki is more busy. Too many things need to be checked by him. Because there is no systematic modern education, although the number of these people under his hand is large, they may not even be as high as high school students. For example, in the finance department, the method of bookkeeping is extremely old. Haruki looked dizzy. I had to go to the research institute to borrow a computer, and I got a form to simplify the complicated accounts clearly. The so-called elites transferred from the Oshima Chamber of Commerce were all dumbfounded. They can't understand that there is such a simple way, and they have never thought of it. The only pity is that Haruki was not an accountant in his previous life, so he could only teach some thinking. This is so, the elites present also felt that the door to New World had been opened, so that they bowed their heads in shame. Before Haruki's operation, they still complained about his layman's blind command in their hearts. As for the wedding, it is said that it is the first major event of the organization, but in fact it does not need them to do anything, and the time is relatively abundant, let them give priority to solving their own department's affairs. After Haruki and Tsunade settled the finance department, they left the newly purchased office building. Suntree. Tsunade held Haruki's big warm hand. After walking for a while, he asked, "What else do you don't understand?" Haruki laughed. "There must be, like your heart, I can't see through it." "What are you talking about?" Tsunade couldn't help but gave him a blank look. "You don't have Byakugan, how can you see through the human body?" "Are you too serious, right?" Haruki pointed to her heart blocked by two mountains. "I'm not talking about the biological heart." Tsunade was startled slightly, and then reacted. The corners of his mouth curled up unconsciously. "Then you have to work hard." Haruki touched his chin, and said thoughtfully, "I think it's a problem with clothes." Quote. A black line appeared on Tsunade's forehead. "The dog can't spit out ivory." Haruki suddenly leaned in front of her. The breath were suddenly filled with sweetness. What? Tsunade was taken aback. "I heard that dogs like to stick their tongues out in summer." Haruki used a suicide attack and succeeded in taking advantage of it, sucking a soft tongue. For some reason he thought of a sentence, "I may not be a human, but you are a real dog." Although Tsunade didn't know this sentence, she was in the same mood now. She flushed and twisted the soft flesh around Haruki's waist fiercely. "Hi, tap it." Haruki just wanted to say that happiness comes at a price, and so do dogs. After more than 10 seconds of devastation, he escaped from Tsunade's clutches. The man's waist really bears too much. Haruki rubbed her waist and couldn't help feeling a heartache. He and Tsunade are rushing to Uzumaki Mito's secret residence. As Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, her importance is self-evident. Especially after losing two Hokages, Senju Hashirama and Senju Tobirama, Nine-Tails is a key factor in maintaining Konoha's number 1 ninja village. There must be no loss. The original story, the reason why the Uchiha clan quickly broke out after the Nine-Tails rebellion was because the Konoha executives saw the terrible part of Sharingan's manipulation of Nine-Tails. They are afraid of accidents. Without Uchiha Itachi's rebellion, perhaps the Uchiha clan could succeed in rebelling. There was still some distance from the residence. Haruki was bored, so he played with Tsunade's little hands. Soft and very sensual. And perhaps because of the ninja, there is no old age, and the skin is tight and fair. By the time Uzumaki Mito's residence, Haruki had touched both hands. "Aren't you a pervert?" Tsunade withdrew his hand, blushing faintly visible in the delicate area. "Surely not." Haruki shook his head solemnly. "I just like you. Your hand is a part of you. Is it normal for me to like it?" "Bullshit." Tsunade looked amused when he looked at his gentle beast. "Fortunately, you are in my hands. Otherwise, how many girls will be harmed?" Haruki looked at her, and praised her. "The love story just now is pretty good." "Shameless." Tsunade couldn't help but squeezed his face. "I'm going to see my grandmother soon. Take me seriously." Okay. Haruki coughed and narrowed his smile. He already felt Anbu everywhere around him. They are used by Hokage to protect Uzumaki Mito. In Haruki's view, it is better to say it is a humanoid early warning device than protection. Although Uzumaki Mito is older, as Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, it is not an exaggeration to say that it is Konoha's first combat power. If anyone can break through here, the nearby Anbu will be the food delivery. "Grandmother." Tsunade knocked on the door, and after getting a response, he walked in. Haruki saw Uzumaki Mito sitting at the table. Wearing a white kimono, the iconic red hair of the Uzumaki clan is tied into a double maru hairstyle. There is a purple diamond mark on the forehead. It is the same 100 healings mark as Tsunade. Although he was old, he was full of energy, and he did not look like a dying old man at all. In her arms, there was a familiar little fox. Not Nine-Tails, but the desert fox that Haruki gave Uzumaki Kushina. Seeing Tsunade, Uzumaki Mito put down the fox and beckoned to her. Tsunade stepped forward, squatting halfway, leaning on her lap. Because Tsunade is the first grandchild, both Senju Hashirama and Uzumaki Mito love her very much. Little Tsunade, because what's going on here? Uzumaki Mito touched her long blonde hair and said with a smile. "There is a good thing." Tsunade suddenly became embarrassed, and even she felt ashamed when she talked about her marriage. Really rare. Uzumaki Mito noticed her expression, took another look at Haruki, and asked, "Are you two finally getting married?" Grandma, what are you? How can I guess? Uzumaki Mito took her word and couldn't help laughing. "You have always been generous, and only if you are related to Haruki, will you behave like a little woman. What do you think? Am I so obvious?" Tsunade smiled embarrassedly, not daring to look at her eyes. "It's great. Tsunade has grown up too." Uzumaki Mito patted her head with emotion. "Fortunately, I can see all this alive." "Grandma, you are not allowed to say such things." Tsunade snorted softly. "Okay, don't talk about this." Uzumaki Mito smiled. When are you going to get married? August 2nd. It turned out to be Tsunade's birthday. Yes, double happiness. Uzumaki Mito nodded in satisfaction, then waved to Haruki, waited for him to approach, grabbed his hand, and placed it on the back of Tsunade's hand. Hashirama is the only granddaughter left. You must protect her. I will. Swear with my life. Haruki answered seriously. He knows that Uzumaki Mito has the ability to recognize good and evil because of Nine Tails, and lies are useless in front of her. I just don't know how much time she has. Now that Konoha has found Uzumaki Kushina, it means that her life will end. As for Nine Tails, he has some ideas. Mainly Nine Tails' huge chakra, and the ability to make chakra, almost unlimited chakra, reminded him of nuclear power plants. Taking Nine Tails to engage in the ninja industry may be the correct use. A huge energy body is only used as a power bank for a ninja, which is too wasteful. Namikaze Minato originally split Nine Tails into two, which did not affect Jinchuriki's strength. He has already planned to study like his apprentice and come out with half of Nine Tails. But this matter is very difficult. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 87 Danzo. At this time, Nine Tails, who was sealed in the belly of Uzumaki Mito, did not know that a man outside had arranged it clearly. Because Uzumaki Mito's sealing technique is too strong, Nine Tails is not as free as in the belly of Uzumaki Naruto. It is completely unable to spy on the outside world, and naturally cannot perceive Haruki's malice. Although even if you know it, it is of no use. Haruki asked Tsunade to chat with Uzumaki Mito while he went to the kitchen to prepare lunch. A few minutes later, Uzumaki Kushina came to learn the sealing technique as usual. When he saw Haruki and Tsunade, he was immediately surprised, at least the delicious lunch could not run away. And her team members, Uchiha Makoto and Namikaze Minato, are not eligible to meet Nine Tails Jinchuriki. It would be impossible for Haruki to meet Uzumaki Mito without the identity of Tsunade's boyfriend. In the original work, even Sanin did not know about the replacement of Jinchuriki. It can be seen that Konoha kept secret of Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Haruki watched Kushina and the little fox staring at the food in the pot, and suddenly frowned. Has this fox gained weight? What? Kushina regained her consciousness and lowered her head. Compared to when Haruki first gave it to her, her body was fatter. The main reason is that Grandma Mito likes to feed it when she is fine. Haruki was somewhat silent. There is a kind of hungry, Grandma thinks you are hungry, and a kind of cold, Grandma thinks that you should wear long trousers. Speaking of which, Kushina, didn't you give it a name? No. Kushina shook her head. She kept calling foxes. Maybe you can become a ninja beast in the future. Why don't you think of a name? Haruki thought of Samahata, because it has been following Three Tails for a long time and being transformed by Kurigakure, it has become one of the famous 7 ninja swords. If Kushina becomes Nine Tails Jinchuriki in the future, and the little fox follows Nine Tails, he can't be worse than Samahata, right? Maybe it can become a human being. I think about it. Kushina pressed her index finger on her little cheek and began to think hard. Haruki continued to cook. After a while, Kushina turned her gaze to him. Teacher, why don't you come? Haruki raised his eyebrows. He hated naming names most. However, as for the fox, the first image that appeared in his mind was naturally the well-known Daji, or according to the neon term, Tamazuchi-an. And she happens to have the same nickname as Kurama, Nine Tails. He remembered that the tail beast had no gender, after all, it was just a chakra aggregate. Ahem. Suddenly he had a super bold idea. It's better to call it Yuzao-chen. Haruki looked at the little fox with hope for his future. Wait, is this little guy female or male? His expression was a little frozen. The Sanagakure given to him did not say its gender. In front of Yuzao, Kushina looked serious, tilted her head, and stroked the little fox. You will be called Yuzao-chen from now on. It seemed that she was very satisfied with the name. The corners of Haruki's mouth twitched slightly, and she had to find time to touch her gender. Half an hour later, a sumptuous lunch was out. After Haruki and Tsunade finished their meal, they didn't stay longer. And Kushina started the study of sealing technique. On the way home, Haruki suddenly stopped, and 2 green figures emerged from the forest in the distance. What came with it was a passionate voice that never seemed to be tired. Youth is endless, guy. Burn your efforts to challenge the geniuses. Suddenly the style of painting changed suddenly. Haruki looked at Might Dai and his son Might Guy, who was no one else. Konoha Beast with 8 inner gates, the legendary Konoha Genin. Might wore 1 and hit 7, directly smashing the 7 ninja swords that were said to be able to break through a country overnight. And his son is even more exaggerated. He almost made the finale with 1 kick, forcing Uchiha Madara to say that. I would like to call you the strongest. Although the cards were full, the ending was miserable. Is the current guy not enrolled yet? Haruki touched his chin and looked at the small figure, diligent and hardworking, there seemed to be light in his eyes. It reminded him of the controversial Eagle Dad news in his previous life, which made his 4-year-old son run in the snow. Let's go. Haruki retracted his gaze and did not say hello to the 2 of them. He was confident that he would affect others, but they couldn't. The willpower is so firm that it cannot be changed. But how to put it, it's actually easy for the two to get along. As long as you work hard enough, you can get their approval. However, he really didn't want to run 5 kilometers in Konoha now. Although this does not hinder his appreciation of the two people, if they are allowed to enter the organization, it will evolve into a very strange style of painting. When Haruki thought of this possibility, oh no, it should be inevitable, his forehead hurts. Forget it, I'll talk about it later. Master Haruki. Before Konoha, Shinji appeared in a corner. I have one thing to report. What's up? Haruki was a little curious, and it was the first time he had personally reported to him since he joined Root. Shinji Hira glanced at Tsunade, but did not speak. Haruki, then I will leave first. Tsunade noticed the look in his eyes. She was very clear about business matters. Before Haruki could answer, she had disappeared. What's the matter? Haruki knew that Shinji Hira would not let Tsunade leave for no reason. It's Senju Hashirama's cell. Shinji did not speak, but wrote down the line while holding a piece of paper. He has the tongue curse and curse seal and cannot say anything about Shimura Danzo. Really? Haruki was not surprised. It was indeed inappropriate to say this in front of Tsunade, but he would definitely choose an opportunity to bring this up to her. I just don't know if she is aware of the wood-style experiment in Konoha village. Today's Shimura Danzo is just starting this experiment again. But without Orochimaru's help, he is doomed to be difficult to succeed. After losing the humble Luhu, Shimura Danzo has been looking for the ninja who knows wood style. Although there has been no news, it also gave him confidence that other than Senju Hashirama, other people can also have wood style. Shinji paused, turned a page, and continued to write. He has now built a new laboratory deep in the Konoha Tribulation Chamber, using prison inmates to transplant Senju Hashirama cells. But none of them succeeded. So he focused on Orochimaru. What? Seeing the last sentence, Haruki suddenly smiled. Good guy, digging the foot of the wall and digging on me? He and Orochimaru have already met once, and Orochimaru has not refused, so I doubt. Shinji Hira stopped writing and didn't write anymore. He knew Haruki and Orochimaru were related. Not surprisingly, Haruki narrowed his eyes. Danzo, since you were so anxious, I will help you. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 88 Hashirama Cells. Haruki came to the Ninja School Research Institute again. Looking at the green transparent cylinders around him, it was difficult for him to understand that Orochimaru could stay there for so long. Hardly go out. Perhaps it is because he was a liberal arts student in his previous life, just like the Salty Party could never understand the Sweets Party. Orochimaru, I heard Danzo met you. Haruki had no courtesy, and directly stated his purpose. He knows Orochimaru, he is not a hypocritical person, his personality is actually quite straightforward. For example, in the original book, Uchiha Sasuke doesn't make any fancy, but directly shows considerable interest and uses power to seduce. To be him, he must first draw a big pie and then slowly adjust. Yes. Orochimaru answered without raising his head. He stood in front of the test bench, wearing white gloves with blood on it. I want to know what he talked to you. Haruki looked at the bloody scene that was enough to make a mosaic, and asked. It's nothing. He asked me to help him study Senju Hashirama's cells and breed children with wood-style blood inheritance boundaries. Orochimaru didn't hide it, telling the truth, but I rejected him. Why? Haruki looked at his calm face somewhat unexpectedly. He thought Orochimaru would agree. After all, the original has happened. That's the god of the ninja world. You should be very interested in Senju Hashirama's cells. The ninja god cannot help me live forever. Orochimaru said nonchalantly. Besides, I don't like Shimura Danzo. Haruki showed a strange look. Orochimaru has never been in contact with Senju Hashirama's cells, so I don't know that it has various functions besides wood style. It is omnipotent. The immortal technique for him is actually helpful. As for the latter reason, he has ignored it, and he has never seen who Orochimaru likes. However, Senju Hashirama's cells are so terrifying that he has reached the legendary state of rebirth from a drop of blood, but he himself died suddenly, which is really puzzling. Is there any problem? Orochimaru saw that he didn't speak, and started urging to rush people. If you don't hinder me. Haruki couldn't help but smile. Anyway, I have also been your teacher for a period of time, this impatient attitude, as if I want to blackmail you. I want you to do me a favor. Orochimaru raised his head suddenly, and a cold breath was revealed in the serpent-like eyes with vertical pupils. In the next second, it seems that a snakehead will be released to bite people. Haruki turned a blind eye and said, I want you to help Shimura Danzo study wood style. I can't understand. Orochimaru frowned slightly. You didn't join the roots, why did you help Shimura Danzo? Or do you want the roots of Master Hokage? I'm not interested. Haruki thought for a while, and said, or it is more important to me to have no roots. Do you want to get rid of the roots? Orochimaru thoughtfully. Indeed, the roots have too much power. Haruki wants Tsunade to become Hokage, and it is more advantageous for the roots to disappear. Yes, you pretended to help him in order to obtain evidence that he violated Konoha's rules and used his own people to do experiments. Haruki didn't mind telling his plan in front of him. So that there is a kind of magical feeling, because what he said was actually what the original Orochimaru did. Since Orochimaru, one of the Sanins, was forced to defect, what about Sarutobi Hiruzen when his good friend Shimura Danzo did such a thing? Haruki remembered that Sarutobi Hiruzen could forgive Shimura Danzo's assassination. I have to say that the relationship between these two people is quite complicated. Not only use each other, but also have common goals and special feelings. Why should I help you? Orochimaru shook his head and said, you and I have been cleaned up. Two clears. A smile appeared on Haruki's face. How do you clear the two? Although you helped me crack Caged Bird, you should pay off the biological knowledge I taught you, but you are using my money now. As Jonin, Orochimaru has a lot of money, but it is not enough. No matter which world you are in, scientific research burns money. The original work Orochimaru established a Tonin village. In addition to having a plot, there are also reasons for making money. After hearing Haruki's words, Orochimaru was a little silent. The guy in front of him indeed provided him with a stable and good external environment, and solved other problems besides the experiment itself. It's okay to ask me to help you. Orochimaru frowned. You have to promise me one condition. Oh, what conditions? As long as it can be met, I will definitely meet you. Haruki waved his hand and said, anyway, so much money has already been spent, he doesn't care about asking for more. You. Orochimaru said lightly. Haruki took a step back in fright. What did you say? I didn't hear clearly just now. The wood-style experiment was done in Konoha's early days. I have read relevant records and all failed because Senju Hashirama's cells are too domineering. Orochimaru explained. Extracting Senju Tobarama's genetic gene and injecting it into the human body will cause a very strong rejection, but you are different, or it can be neutralized. Don't pant when you speak, so as not to be misunderstood by others. Haruki couldn't help but vomit. Orochimaru knows he knows wood style. After all, it is impossible for him to cooperate obediently by just relying on his mouth to escape. He can only rely on physical persuasion. What's the misunderstanding? Orochimaru glanced at him and didn't quite understand what he meant. Nothing. Haruki shook his head. Since you want to study, as long as you don't kill anyone, I will cooperate with you. He still has some confidence in his medical ninjutsu. It's okay. Even if you die, I will bring you back in pure world reincarnation. Orochimaru said casually. Haruki didn't react at all, and then frowned. How did you get impure world reincarnation? Steal it. Orochimaru said nonchalantly. This kind of technique hurts the sky, don't use it. Haruki thought for a while and said. You can say such a thing from your mouth. Orochimaru gave him a surprised look. Haruki didn't answer, he just didn't want to see the mess. But it's no big deal. I stole impure world reincarnation, not for research, but to learn Konoha's various forbidden techniques. Orochimaru gave a rare explanation. Shimura Danzo used the prisoner to study in Konoha's severe punishment room. After you contact him, try to make him do something more extreme. Haruki thought for a while, then added, Senju Hashirama's cells can be made more, which is very useful for us. He thought that in the future, there might be several pairs of Mangekyo Sharingan in his disciple and grandson. With Senju Hashirama's cells, it can prevent premature blindness. In addition, maybe Tsunade can learn wood style. But the danger is high, it depends on Orochimaru's final results. Of course, this is only the first ring to deal with Shimura Danzo. Haruki prepared a lot of interesting things for him. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 89. After Haruki bid farewell to Orochimaru, he did not leave the research building. Instead, he walked towards the laboratory further down. Originally, Orochimaru was on the last floor, but in order to accommodate the 40 Hyuga Branch House ninjas and Hyuga Branch House, an almost airtight underground hall was specially opened. The main purpose is to prevent Belyuhu from escaping. As for the ninja of the Hyuga Branch House, with his eloquence of knowing reason and emotion, he has already believed that he and Hyuga Kaji, through the hands of Shimura Danzo, overthrew the system of Hyuga elders and Caged Bird. Effort. The most important thing is that they have seen the changes in Hyuga's house today. Otherwise, in the face of a person who imprisoned them, no matter how you shunned them, it would be impossible to be trusted. Unless it is Stockholm Syndrome. Hyuga Bra. Haruki knocked on the door. Among the 40 Hyuga branch houses, Hugasa had the highest prestige and was also his appointed person in charge. Master Haruki. Hugasa was about 30 years old and unsmiling, but when he saw Haruki, his expression still changed. Because he remembered that Haruki said that meeting again is when they get out of trouble. Sit. Haruki pointed to the wooden chair, thought for a while, and said, you should know that Haruha was originally from Shimura Danzo. Hyuga nodded. I have discussed with you Hyuga, it is time for you to return to the world and give Shimura Danzo a surprise. Haruki lowered his voice and said in his ear what he should do. Hyuga Shaw's eyes widened. This was a complete break between the Hyuga family and Shimura Danzo. Don't worry, Patriarch Hyuga has agreed. Since he has such courage, how can you cower? Haruki patted him on the shoulder, encouraging him. Hyuga's blood surged in an instant. Yes. Their Hyuga family has been silent for too long, and the patriarch dared to flash his sword to Shimura Danzo. How can he be worthy of the patriarch? Master Haruki, don't worry. Hyuga said with a pat on his chest, leave this to me, it must be done, otherwise I will meet you. Your head is gone, what else did you say to see me? Haruki joked. Hey. Hyuga Sasha smiled embarrassedly, and then he remembered something again, and took out a small notebook. I recorded all the malicious behaviors of Beliu. Shingshu turned a few pages at will. Tusk, this guy is really not honest, adding some ingredients to the Ghost Bud Luo technique. Good job. He put away his notebooks. Go ahead and do what I said. Yes. Hyuga replied excitedly. As long as he finishes this thing, he can go home. He has long been longing for the new Hyuga home. Without the limitations of caged bird, he seems to have found a new goal in life. I have a few babies with my wife, and maybe I can still be the head of the patriarch in the future. After the matter was over, Haruki left the institute. Tsunade, I'm back. Haruki changed his shoes, closed the door, and walked towards the study. Tsunade was writing something at his desk. The sun fell on her, and her golden hair flickered like a special effect. Haruki walked behind her and looked at it. It turned out to be a wedding invitation. I have to say that Tsunade's writing is good. And his own, well, just like the ghost painting symbol, the high EQ argument is the modern cursive master. Actually, you can let Damuji and the others help. Haruki pinched Tsunade's shoulder and said, how can I let others help with my own wedding? Tsunade glared at him and said, don't massage, and write me the invitation letter. Haruki leaned over and gave her a quick kiss, satisfied to pick up the exquisite invitation letter, and began to write carefully. Although not very good looking, but relatively neat. Tsunade reacted, lowered his head, and couldn't help laughing. Haruki wrote for a while, and found something was wrong. Because it is too much. His and Tsunade's identities and connections determined that their wedding could not be unknown, but would become Konoha's event. All ninjas with names and surnames will come. Even though they are all important guests, they are a bit too much. Haruki barely finished writing until night. He rubbed his sore fingers. At this moment, he remembered the feeling of writing more than a dozen test papers at once when he was a senior in high school in his previous life. Look at who else is missing. Tsunade stretched out, picked up the invitation letter and faced the list. Just one short. Haruki smiled suddenly. Jiraiya. Huh. Tsunade looked at him dumbly. Hey what? Haruki stretched out his hand and pulled at her face, feeling the soft touch, and said, is it true that he hasn't come back for too long? You almost forgot about this person. You're still laughing. Tsunade slapped his hand. You write quickly. I'll inform him. Haruki shrugged and smiled. I hope he won't be too happy. Well, I was so happy that I wanted to kill him. Because Jiraiya believed in Toad Sage's prophecy, he was willing to spend his entire life and even his own life to pursue and cultivate the so-called prophetic son. He abandoned a lot of things for this, including his feelings for Tsunade. Since knowing the prophecy, he hardly mentioned any topics he liked. You know that he is a fierce man who can meet Tsunade for the first time and can say, love letter will be given later. Haruki silently wrote the invitation letter. Jiraiya, bet on the dignity of a man, I promise you will live a long life in this life. Finish. Haruki blew the invitation letter. It's finally done. Do you want to have a supper? I didn't eat dinner. Why did I skip to supper? Tsunade stood up and vomited. It's too late. It's time for supper. Haruki put down the invitation letter, thought about it, and suggested, eat milk and bread. I heard that drinking milk before going to bed is helpful for beauty. He opened the refrigerator and took out the milk and bread to warm up in the kitchen. Right, let me tell you one thing. Haruki watched her take a sip of milk from the glass, with white milk circles remaining on the corners of her mouth, and he helped her wipe it. It was Shinji Hira who told me in the afternoon. He discovered that Shimura Danzo was using the cells of your grandfather Senju Hashirama to conduct wood-style human experiments. Tsunade was taken aback for a moment, and then his face was hard to look at. Isn't this experiment stopped by the teacher? How can Master Hokage stop the allure of wood-style? Haruki rubbed her hair and whispered, once you get wood-style, Shimura Danzo will get a trump card that is enough to come back. He can't give up, and for him, sacrificing some people is nothing. This bastard. Tsunade Ginyu bit her lip. If it's a capital crime or a hostile ninja, it's fine, but he is forcing himself to participate in the experiment, it really shouldn't be. Haruki squinted his eyes slightly. In order to avoid being suspected, Orochimaru in this life never used the people of the village to experiment again. But Shimura Danzo doesn't pay attention to these. After all, he and Root's hands are full of blood. I plan to report him to Master Hokage, you. Tsunade immediately expressed concern. She knew Shimura Danzo's methods and status better. Do not worry. Haruki told her about her plan. Although the methods are not very bright, Tsunade is also acceptable as a ninja, let alone dealing with Shimura Danzo. Haruki hugged Tsunade's soft body, and the reason he gradually told her was because husband and wife should be honest with each other. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 90. Tsunade wiped her wet blonde hair with a towel, and the pajamas she wore could not conceal her graceful figure. Haruki beckoned to her. What are you doing? Tsunade was slightly startled when he saw his movements. Are you not going to take a bath? I will dry your hair for you. Haruki pressed her on the sofa. Because he was so close, he smelled bursts of fragrance, which reminded people of marshmallows. Sweet and delicious. He raised his hand and put it above her head, and the chakra in his body gushed out of his hand, and the invisible wind suddenly blew the scattered long hair. A human-shaped hair dryer was born. So wasteful. Tsunade enjoyed his service with a smile on his lips. It's nothing. Haruki said disapprovingly. It's really waste that chakra is used to fight. Tsunade couldn't help raising his head and glanced at him. What's wrong? Am I wrong? Haruki noticed her gaze. No. But such a thing, only you, a ninja can say. Tsunade lowered his head, letting the cool wind and his warm hands rub his hair. In my opinion, chakra is just a kind of energy after all, the same as electricity. Haruki felt that her hair had no water stains, and became supple, and stopped chakra's output. Although his hand should leave, he couldn't help but rubbed it a few more times. Tsunade raised her mouth slightly. She liked the appearance of Haruki being obsessed with her. She may spit on her lips, but she is honest in her heart and will smile from the heart of touch. This may be love. At the strongest time, I can't wait for two people to stick together forever. Haruki sat down next to her. Tsunade hugged his arm. Hurry up and take a shower. Row. Haruki reluctantly drew it from the soft touch. Tsunade looked at his back, propped his chin with both hands, and a few seconds later, he smiled idiotically. The next morning, before Tsunade awoke, Haruki appeared in her room as usual. This time, she didn't run to her bed. Although it took advantage, it was also very uncomfortable. But this kind of suffering is about to end, and then let her know what Yi Shunge is. Tsunade's eyelashes trembled slightly, and after a few seconds, he opened his eyes. She subconsciously touched to the side, but there was no one, and then she saw the standing Haruki. You were very good today. I've always been good. Haruki raised her eyebrows, squatted down, and stared at her face leaning against the pillow. So behaved, won't you reward me? Tsunade curled his lips, then kissed him on the forehead. Konoha's tribulation room at the same moment. Another group of prisoners ushered in the prison. Hyuga Setsak had completely changed his appearance at this time, and the iconic Byakugan disappeared, replaced by a fierce cheat face. What crime did you commit? The caravan that robbed Hyuga's house was sent by Hyuga's house. Tisk, I'm pretty bold. Hearing the three characters of Hyuga's house, Fuji, who was holding a pen, immediately raised his head and glanced at the 40 people in front of him. Konoha's severe punishment room is mainly for murderers and leakers. Sending here almost means death or life imprisonment. The Hyuga family sent them here, with a clear meaning. With their hands, kill them. Hisano Fu is not surprised. They have done many similar things. There is too much dirty in the big family. Check. Yes. After helping his body, Kuno walked out a few people and began to inspect Hyugasa and others. The acupoints on their bodies are blocked. Only the Hyuga family can do this. In that case, there should be no problem. Take them down and focus on monitoring for a period of time. Kuno Fu thought for a while. The Hyuga family's face must be given to him, but he also has to prevent accidents from happening. Soon, Hyugasa was locked up in a cell. As night fell, he suddenly opened the acupuncture path, Byakugan opened, and the surrounding situation suddenly reflected in the perception. After searching for a while, he knew what Haruki said. The two huge chakras seemed as dazzling as the moon in the night. Function Thor. He has a strange power that is hard to reach by ordinary people, and has a huge appetite. Because he had no food to do the task, he killed all his partners and was detained in jail. In the original book, he escaped from prison with Mizuki to find Orochimaru for food, but was finally stopped by Tsunade. Tsunade is their nemesis. Hyuga closed her eyes and did not move. After waiting for the specified time 5 days later, he left his clone and disappeared at night. Brother, do you smell anything? Thor, who was sleeping, suddenly opened his eyes. Don't make trouble, sleep. Function moved his mouth, are you dreaming? No, Lei Shen got up, followed the smell, and found a meat bun outside the iron gate. Hey, brother, there are buns. He picked up the bun and stuffed it into his mouth, suddenly widening his eyes. How can it be so delicious? Raytheon yelled incredibly. He had never eaten such a delicious steamed bun in his entire life. Delicious? How can there be any delicious? Function suddenly got his spirits and got up excited. At this moment, the second meat bun rolled in. Function didn't dislike the dust and just killed it in one go. Like Thor, he was shocked by the ultimate delicious meat buns. There is such a delicious meat bun in this world? I want more. Function immediately looked around. Where? Coming. Raytheon smashed the iron railing without hesitation, grabbed the third meat bun that flew over, ate it in one bite, and ran along the direction it was flying. Brother? Wait for me. Function slowed down a step, and he heard a rumbling sound, accompanied by a lot of dust, and his brother was gone. If you have something to eat, forget about your brother. Are you sorry for your brother? Function also slammed into it immediately. Konoha suddenly jumped around during the severe punishment, and the path of the meat buns was not fixed. Many prisoners opened their prison doors with the accidental help of Feng Shen Lai Shen. All of a sudden, chaos broke out. The culprit, Feng Shen Lai Shen, completely ignored him, chasing the meat bun, and reached the depths of Konoha's severe punishment room. Shimura Danzo's laboratory. What sound? Did something happen outside? No, this is the heavily guarded Konoha tribulation room. Orochimaru listened to the slightly flustered discussion around him, thinking about what Haruki said. He put away his white gloves and said, "Go and see what happened outside." "Yes, Lord Orochimaru." After a while, a ninja at the root reported, "A prisoner has escaped from prison." Boom. Immediately after he finished speaking, two human figures seemed to knock open the door of the laboratory like giant tanks. "Let them transfer." Orochimaru frowned and said. The ninjas at the root showed up one after another, taking these researchers away. On the other hand, Orochimaru quietly collected Senju Hashirama's cells, and then the summoning beast was summoned. A huge python completely filled the laboratory, and it was no longer visible. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 91. The big snake disappeared with the smoke. Hugasa appeared in front of Orochimaru. Orochimaru glanced at him and took out a test tube. This is a weakened version of the cell. Although there is still rejection, it will not kill you. I see. Hyuga Sasuke took the test tube and injected it directly into his body. After a few seconds, he showed a bit of pain. Almost meaning. Orochimaru looked at his reaction coldly, and then reached out and tapped on his arm. Under chakra stimulation, Hyuga-cha finally couldn't hold back the pain and cried out. And his right arm showed a small branch from it. In a moment, the whole arm was wrapped around, and it looked like an abnormal trend. You only have 3 days, otherwise it will deteriorate completely. Orochimaru waved his hand and stopped speaking. He could help to this extent, and it was entirely because of Haruki's face. Although Haruki could make the Hyuga family cooperate so well, he was a little surprised. Thanks. Thank you, Orochimaru-sama. There were beads of sweat on Hyuga's forehead, and he deeply felt that these branches seemed to have life, drilling into his body, both painful and frightening. But there was no fear on his face. Hyuga Seo knew what she was doing. There is no coercion. This is to pay for a better future. Orochimaru was silent for a while, then he sealed his seal and disappeared in the laboratory. And outside the gate, 2 big guys are arbitrarily destroying xiaolongbao made by Haruki. After half an hour, an office at the root. Tell me, what is this? Shimura Danzo's eyes shone with coldness and hidden anger. In front of him, it was the Konoha Daily that had just been issued urgently. In the most eye-catching place, there are 3 lines of titles like this, one more shocking than the other. The worst criminal in Konoha's history escaped. Konoha's tribulation room is a collective escape. Please, Konoha village residents, pay attention to travel safety. If only this is the case. Shimura Danzo saw a very inconspicuous passage in the article. The reason for the riots here seems to be that someone used prisoners to conduct human experiments in the depths of Konoha's torture chamber. Close black lens bracket. My lord, sorry, it took time to transfer researchers, but we really don't know how the Konoha Daily News learned about it. A root ninja wearing an animal mask knelt before Shimura Danzo, his voice trembling slightly. How do you know? Shimura Danzo sneered, and Shin Konoha Bookstore hired a large number of people to act as the so-called reporter. I don't usually see anything, but just treat it as lace news, discount advertisements, or anecdotes. But he knew at this moment that the reporter had almost penetrated Konoha. He sighed slightly in his heart that this bookstore was too smart. The true identities of these reporters are all Konoha villagers. He can't do it. There is still room for relaxation now. Shimura Danzo calmed down. After all, he had experienced strong winds and waves. The Konoha Daily News is just a small trouble, but the news should be pulled down so that the interested people will not notice the problem. Take a few people to the new Konoha bookstore and let the boss stop publishing it. Yes, Aburame Ryoma, you go to the Konoha tribulation room and make sure to destroy all the traces. As for the rest, inform Anbu to bring the prisoner back together. Hokage is definitely not hidden from such a big thing. I personally rushed over. After Shimura Danzo finished the order, he thought for a while, and there was indeed no omission, and he was relieved. Sarutobi Hiruzen had acquiesced to him to do some excessive things. Although the wood-style experiment was stopped, Sarutobi Hiruzen does not know that it is wood-style now, so he can just find a replacement. What's more, I use prisoners whose sins cannot be forgiven. Waste utilization is nothing. Immediately, he frowned slightly. After working with Orochimaru, he found some babies, but there was no time for the experiment. It shouldn't be a big problem. Shimura Danzo put away his thoughts and hurried towards the Hokage building. On the other side, new Konoha bookstore, the atmosphere is a bit solemn. Okiji glanced at the newly placed chrysanthemums in the corner, and the almost imperceptible fragrance was slowly flowing. Stuffed stuff. The ninja at the root will come over immediately. You work as usual, but there is a requirement that no matter how the root treats you, you can't fight back, even if it's dead. The voice was heavy and firm. There was unshakable faith in his eyes. Oki Kai looked around for a week, and the few people in front of him were his most trusted subordinates. The order is issued without hesitation. Clear. Just as usual, a few minutes later, the root ninja, known as Takeda, rushed into the bookstore with 3 of his men. This guest, don't know what to buy. Oki Kai first naturally showed a shock of error and was surprised at the arrival of the roots, but then he smiled enthusiastically. Are you the boss? Takeda looked at him with no emotion in her voice. By the order of Lord Shimura Danzo, I will stop the newspaper today. Huh, Oki Kai asked surprised, I don't know what Danzo-sama means. Our Shin Konoha bookstore has always been Konoha's excellent villagers, and has never violated any rules. You are not willing. Taiwu looked cold behind his mask, and an unnamed fire emerged from his heart. A small bookstore owner, a guy with almost inexhaustible strength, dared to resist Danzo-sama. It's damn it. It's not that I don't want to, my lord, there must be a reason for this, right? Reason. Wu Tai directly slapped him and slapped him over. The huge strength and Omuji's lack of resistance made his body fly up and knocked down the bookshelf, and suddenly there was a continuous cracking sound. This is the reason. Your roots are too domineering. It's the wailing of the weak. Mrs. Wu snorted coldly, smash this shop for me. The 3 ninjas behind him immediately moved their hands. The staff of New Konoha bookstore just watched angrily, not daring to say anything at all. Tai Wu smiled triumphantly. The haze previously taught by Shimura Danzo was immediately wiped out. But he was in a daze, and he always felt that he had forgotten something very important. Such movement was naturally noticed by the villagers outside the bookstore. But seeing Mr. Wu's masks and costumes, one could only watch from a distance. Someone in the crowd lowered their voice and asked, why would the people at the root smash a bookstore? Is it today's newspaper? But what does Konoha have to do with the roots? Maybe the human experiment mentioned in the newspaper. Quote. The onlookers who ate the melon immediately fell silent. After a while, I saw blood spilling from the corners of his mouth, his face was red and swollen, and his body was covered with dust. He usually gets along with the neighbors around him. The desolate appearance now makes many people angry. A good person is treated like this because he told a plausible truth. Someone yelled out of injustice. Manager Oki, go to Konoha Hospital to see the injury. Oki-ji reluctantly pulled out a smile and bowed to everyone. Thank you for your concern, but my new Konoha bookstore suffered this catastrophe for no reason. I am not convinced. I want to speak to Master Hokage. I believe Master Hokage will never wrong any good person, and will never let go of any bad person. If you are free, please follow me to witness. I believe that evil can overcome righteousness. Quote. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 92. At first it was just one person, but as time passed, more and more people came together. Some of them are for the sense of justice in their hearts, some are born with love to join in the fun, and some are because they have been beaten by the roots. Regardless of the reason, these people who did not know each other and dressed in different costumes formed a mighty dragon behind Damuji. They entangled the street, slowly and firmly, like a dragon jumping across the sea towards the Hokage building. Hyuga quickly skimmed the roof. Due to unprecedented scenes, almost all ninjas rushed to the center of the incident. No one noticed him. Hyuga set a glance at the huge crowd from a distance, feeling a sense of fear in her heart. I really don't know how Haruki does it. He has never seen it before, only in the past records that only first Hokage Senju Hashirama had such prestige when he built the village. 100 responses, tens of thousands of people crowded around. Hyuga Seta couldn't help but burst into blood and yearning. If one day he can really support the 10-mile-long street, he would be willing to die. Who? Hyuga landed in the Hyuga's house. He did not hide his figure and was soon discovered. Are you, Hyugasa? The middle-aged man who found him looked shocked. The dead are resurrected. Or do you have a hallucination? What the hell is going on? Aren't you dead? Fake death only. Hyugasa patted his shoulder with his left hand. Everything is the foresight of the patriarch. Take me to the patriarch, you understand naturally. Okay, come with me. The middle-aged man smiled after being shocked. The 40 ninjas lost before were almost the heaviest losses of the Hyuga family in recent years. Now it is a pleasant surprise to learn that he did not die. Before reaching Hyuga and Ji's room, the undead disappearance of Hyugasa and others spread immediately. What's the noise? Hearing the noise, Hyuga and Ji pushed open the door, and suddenly saw Hyugasa, who was surrounded by the crowd, and his right arm that seemed to be sprouting in spring. Hyuga Bra, Patriarch. Hyuga hurriedly stepped forward, kneeling, and said with excitement, we have been lurking for several months according to your instructions. Now the time has come. Please also ask the Patriarch to lead us to the Hokage building to completely overthrow Shimura Danzo and his roots. Quote. Quote. Hyuga and C froze in place. What are you saying? Why can't I understand? My order, didn't I just see you today? But when he was about to question, the people around him immediately burst into cheers and looked at him with excitement and worship. The Patriarch really has a foresight. Fortunately, I hated the Patriarch before. I didn't expect it to be like this. From now on, I will only look after the patriarch. To overthrow Shimura Danzo, I didn't expect the patriarch to have such courage. Hyuga tugged at the corner of Sith's mouth and withdrew his question. He pondered for a moment and asked, "What's the matter with your arm?" It was Haruki-sama's meaning. He said that this makes Shimura Danzo's sinful more serious. He not only used the prisoners in Konoha's torture room to do experiments, but also secretly abducted R40 Hyuga ninjas for wood-style implantation. Quote. Hyuga and G combined today's Konoha daily, and instantly understood the cause and effect. No, it should be said that Haruki did everything. Before 40 branch houses disappeared and forced the clan to eliminate Caged Bird, even costing the lives of the elders, and then used these 40 ninjas to plant Shimura Danzo, and even forced him to an extent that he could not be rejected. Yes, he can refuse now, because his stage has been set up. Once he refuses, he will lose the trust and support of these people around him. Hyuga and G looked at Hyugasa, and he didn't even know that he was being sold and he was still counting money for Haruki. Then he sighed softly. What's the difference between himself? Good strategy. After Hyuga and C were silent for a moment, they raised their hands and shouted. Although Shimura Danzo is Hokage's assistant and root leader, he blatantly violated Konoha's rules and used my people to conduct experiments. The Hyuga family will not tolerate any insults. Hyuga Shah, follow me to see Master Hokage. I will definitely ask you for justice. Yes. Hyugasha immediately responded loudly. A few seconds later, the Hyuga ninjas all around immediately sounded uniform slogans. Justice. Fairness. Fairness. Hyuga and C startled watching all this, their hearts were cold, and suddenly a kind of suffocation and helplessness as they faced the vast ocean. What is going on in this world? In the reverent eyes of the tribe, he took Hyugasa and flew towards the Hokage building. At this time in Hokage's office, neither Sarutobi Hiruzen or Shimura Danzo had realized the turmoil outside. Hiruzen, the rebellion between Konoha's severe punishments will end in 3 days. Shimura Danzo rushed to meet Sarutobi Hiruzen. He went to the wood-style experiment, told about the process, and finally made a 3-day promise. Well, Danzo, leave this to you. Sarutobi Hiruzen took a pipe and warned him, don't make such a big movement next time. Today is an accident. Shimura Danzo breathed a sigh of relief. It really is Sarutobi Hiruzen's character. Suddenly there was a sound outside the door. Master Hokage. Nearly 10,000 villagers appeared on the street outside the building. What? Sarutobi Hiruzen immediately stood up and asked in shock. Nearly 10,000 people. Is this going to rebel? He looked at Shimura Danzo subconsciously. I don't know about this. Shimura Danzo immediately shook his head. Let's go out and take a look. It's best. Sarutobi Hiruzen put away the pipe, pushed the door to the railing, and glanced at it. There was a crowd of black people. He chuckled. What's the situation? Around him, all Anbu occupied the Hokage building, and they waited in full battle, but their hands trembled. The people in front of them are the objects they usually protect. Master Hokage. Oki-kai shouted loudly, attracting Sarutobi Hiruzen's attention. Are you, Oki-kai? Sarutobi Hiruzen carefully recognized his appearance and immediately remembered the relevant information he had read. And Shimura Danzo next to him suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart. Is this bruise and swollen face the result of Tai Wu? Damn it, doesn't he know that Haruki and Sannin are behind this new Konoha bookstore? Who gave his bravery hands? Master Hokage, please be the master for us. Oki-kai immediately knelt down on both knees and told aloud what Wu Tai had done. Finally, he added, the neighbors behind me can testify for me. Please also Lord Hokage. The quiet crowd suddenly heard a voice, I testify. There seemed to be a chain reaction, with one sound after another, one after another. Sarutobi Hiruzen stepped back subconsciously, his face a little pale. Danzo, I think I need an explanation. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 93. Isn't it lively? Shingshu put his arms around his chest, leaning against a locust tree on the side of the road, listening to the uniform slogans in the distance. And Orochimaru's sharp eyes next to him noticed the first few people who shouted. You arranged it. Yes. Haruki shrugged and smiled. If no one takes the lead, they wouldn't dare to shout like that. It's just a group of mobs. Orochimaru retracted his eyes and shook his head slightly. It is of no use. If the teacher is cruel, a few large-scale ninjutsu can solve it. But he didn't dare. Haruki spread his hands. As long as he does it, Konoha will almost be declared split, and his position of Hokage will end here. After all, it's not strong enough. Orochimaru snorted. Although he doesn't like Senju Hashirama very much, if Sarutobi Hiruzen has the power of the god of the ninja world, how can he be so? The words are right, but no matter how strong a person is, what is the difference from a beast if he doesn't restrain him? Haruki pointed to the crowds in front of him, and said, you say they are mobs. Even if you are right, if someone takes the lead, they can explode with unprecedented energy. Orochimaru looked up and glanced at Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo in the Hokage building. Their faces were ugly. Unless it is strong enough to blast the entire planet with one punch, how can you not be afraid of such a scene? They think too much. Orochimaru hit the nail on the head and said, I am definitely not looking forward and backward like this. So you are Orochimaru, and they are not. Haruki smiled. After all, he is a guy who does nothing to achieve his goal, and he has no mercy to kill the teacher. On the contrary, Sarutobi Hiruzen hesitated to him too much and missed the best time to kill him. Orochimaru turned his head and glanced at him. This sentence really pleased him. He turned around, turned his back to Haruki, and said, I finished watching the excitement. You can handle the rest by yourself. Hey. Haruki was a little surprised. It's only halfway through, and the most exciting is in the back. The ending is doomed a long time ago, it's meaningless. Orochimaru's figure drifted away, eventually disappearing. Tisk, you don't mean anything. Haruki tilted her head and looked at the distant scene with a smile. Hiruzen, you know me, I can't commit a fight for a bookstore. Shimura Danzo took a deep breath and said sincerely. What's more, my methods can't be so simple and rude. It's just my subordinate's own opinion. I'm willing to leave these people to you. It's all up to you to fight or kill. He did not hesitate to sell Wutai and others. Even if these people are for him, but they have fallen into such an embarrassing state, even if Sarutobi Hiruzen does not let go, they will never survive. Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned. Although he knew his character, he didn't like this behavior. If you are someone else, you may be directly blacklisted. But Shimura Danzo, as expected. Why prevent the distribution of today's newspaper? Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at Oki-kai, who was kneeling. Today's matter may not be that simple, he must figure it out. If such a shock were to happen again, he couldn't bear it. Shimura Danzo heard that his tone eased, and immediately understood what his good guy was thinking, and he also understood that he might not have read today's newspaper. It's not a big deal. I have a secret laboratory in Konoha's grave penalty room. This time it was also affected. I was worried that the Konoha Daily would leak secrets. Forced Oki-kai. He returned to indifferent again. I don't think Damuji has the ability to instigate these tens of thousands of villagers. There must be an unspoken conspiracy behind this. Please leave it to my roots. Enough. Danzo. Sarutobi Hiruzen saw that not only did he not reflect on himself, but instead climbed up the pole. He couldn't help but scolded. Mutai and others are doing this, all because of your improper discipline. Shimura Danzo didn't agree with it in his heart, but he didn't speak anymore. Sarutobi Hiruzen jumped downstairs, helped Oki-kai, patted him on the shoulder, and another green chakra came out of one-handed knot to heal his injury. Don't worry, I will punish Mrs. Wu and I will give you an explanation. Thank you Hokage-sama. Okiji's expression was grateful, tears even gushing in his eyes. Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled. Could it be that he was too worried? Judging from his appearance, he seems to be sincere and honest, not miserable or false. Okay, it's okay, your Konoha bookstore today will be compensated twice by the village for the loss. He stopped Chakra's input and said kindly, thank you Hokage-sama. Oki was so excited, he raised his hand and shouted, Hokage-sama wise. Long live Hokage-sama. At the moment when Sarutobi Hiruzen was slightly stunned, there were cheers from the streets. He was in a trance. Listening to the compliments to him, waved in response. It doesn't seem to be a bad thing either. After the trouble at the roots, his prestige has increased. After 10 seconds, a noise appeared in the boiling atmosphere. Hokage-sama, Hyuga and I want to sue Shimura Danzo, and let Hokage call the shots. The voice suddenly became quiet, and Hyuga and Ji appeared in front of everyone on the deadly street. Sarutobi Hiruzen suppressed the uneasiness that suddenly came out in his heart, and asked, Patriarch Hyuga, what did you just say? Shimura Danzo was slightly startled, remembering that he had never had any conflict with Hyuga's family. He sneered and asked, Patriarch Hyuga, you know what crime is it to slander Hokage's assistant out of thin air? No need to remind, I know it naturally. Hyuga and C looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen with heavy faces, and felt ruthless in their hearts. Since this moment has come, they absolutely cannot regret it. He knelt directly, blocking the honor and dignity of the Hyuga family, and he wanted to take this matter thoroughly. Master Hokage, please call the shots for me. The 40 members of my Hyuga family who had disappeared before were taken away by the old thief Shimura Danzo and carried out a wood-style human experiment. You fart. Shimura Danzo was anxious. The wood-style human experiment alone still has room for reversal, but if Hyuga is added, this guy is going to put him to death. You and I have seen their bodies with our own eyes. How could it be used by me for experiments? Besides, wood-style's experiments have been stopped a long time ago. I can't do it. Why should Lord Danzo be so annoyed? Hyuga and C showed murderous intent on their faces, and said coldly, Hugasa. After the voice fell, Hyuga's soul appeared. Accompanied by his figure, the crowd suddenly exclaimed, staring at his branched arms. Impossible. Shimura Danzo took 2 steps back in shock, yelling, this is absolutely impossible. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 94. Fatal Strike. Hyuga and she glanced at the yelling Shimura Danzo, their eyes flickered, and bowed to Sarutobi Hiruzen. Hokage-sama, the injury of Hyugasa was indeed caused by wood style. You should know it best. Upon hearing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't help but grabbed Hyugasa's arm with a face. Senju Hashirama, the god of the ninja world, has disappeared for a long time. Few people have seen wood style alive, and he is one of them. He observed it carefully for a moment, and his expression was immediately embarrassed. Although the intensity was far less than that, it was indeed a trace of wood style. Master Hokage, in addition to Master Senju Hashirama of wood style, only those who participated in the experiment that year may have cells. Hyuga and C, as the heads of the Hyuga family, also know this secret. His words crushed Sarutobi Hiruzen. In today's Konoha, there are very few people who can get Senju Hashirama cells. It just so happens that Shimura Danzo can. And when the mysterious wood-style powerhouse appeared a few months ago, Shimura Danzo revealed that he was studying. Although he said that he himself had stopped the experiment, who would know the facts? Since the strength of the roots has grown, Sarutobi Hiruzen himself has lost the master in certain things. However, he thought he could hold Danzo down, so he let him do it. But now it seems that Danzo still doesn't give up. No, it's not right, since 40 Hyuga's family was taken captive by Danzo, or the mysterious wood-style powerhouse was Danzo's men. It was they who joined forces and captured the ninja from the branch house at once. Even better, the Hyuga family suddenly announced that they would unlock Caged Bird. This means that Shimura Danzo has obtained 40 pairs of Byakugans. The more Sarutobi Hiruzen thinks about it, the more reasonable it becomes. He just said that in the past, the Senju clan merged into Konoha, and he has all the lists. It is impossible for a wood-style powerhouse to emerge out of thin air. The greatest possibility is the success of Shimura Danzo's wood-style experiment. He looked at Hyuga and Ji in front of him. The Hyuga family joined Konoha's family as the village was founded. They are so powerful that they don't need to bow down to him as Hokage. And to do so, it is clear that I have a deep hatred with Danzo and want him to die. But he really didn't know what hatred the two had, unless Shimura Danzo used 40 branch house ninjas to stir up public opinion and force him to give up Caged Bird. At the same time, there is another doubt. The branch house corpse they saw was a fake. But whether it is Hyuga and she, or Shimura Danzo, the strength of these two is the elite of Jonin, they didn't realize it. Master Hokage. Hyuga stepped forward and bowed and said, please send the people from Anbu to the Konoha grave penalty room. It is clear at a glance whether my patriarch has lied. Good. Sarutobi Hiruzen took a deep breath. At this point, he couldn't solve it privately. The gaze of nearly 10,000 people in front of him made him sit on pins and needles. Ching, you lead the team and follow him. Yes. The female ninja wearing a frog mask appeared. Danzo, do you have anything else to explain? Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at Shimura Danzo, who was regaining calm after seeing the two of them leaving. I didn't do these things. Shimura Danzo clenched his fists. He had sent someone to destroy the evidence, and it was logically impossible to detect anything. But Hyuga and C clearly came prepared. Is he going to blame himself? It should be impossible. He still trusts Aburame Ryoma's ability. The pervasive bugs are enough to make any evidence disappear. 10 minutes. No one left. Shimura Danzo gradually broke into cold sweat on his forehead. The anxiety in his heart, combined with the many gazes, gave him the illusion that he was in the execution ground. At this moment, a wave of chakra volatility emerged out of thin air. 40 Hyuga ninjas appeared, and each of them is holding a baby. Shimura Danzo only felt cold inside. This is the baby he grabbed everywhere at Orochimaru's request. Orochimaru. At this moment, he finally understood that Orochimaru was involved behind this incident. So a few days ago, he promised himself that he was actually setting up a bureau. Fortunately, he thought Orochimaru was attracted by the rich conditions. Yes, Hyugasa's arm is not exactly the symptom of rejection of his experiment, but it is more mild. But who can adjust the concentration of Senju Hashirama cells besides Orochimaru? However, he suddenly realized a very serious problem. No one would believe his words. Even Sarutobi Hiruzen. Because he usually does too much evil, the name of Orochimaru is now exploded, which is more like a counterattack before his death. After all, the current Orochimaru is the hero of the Second Ninja War. What's the matter with these babies? Sarutobi Hiruzen already had an expectation for the 40 Hyuga ninjas. Although shocked, they are still accepting them. They are just babies that pop up suddenly. Could it be? He suddenly thought of a possibility and couldn't help being dizzy. Before Hyugasa could answer, he heard a hissing cry from the crowd of onlookers. Kwai Kui. This is the child I went missing last night. A woman in her 30s threw herself on one of the babies, picked her up, and wept with joy. Master Hokage, this is the child Danzo found for human experiments. Hyuga bowed and made the last cut heavily. There is no cover in his voice. The woman with the baby exploded with her mother's courage and yelled at Shimura Danzo, you demon. After her, the crowd was raging. All kinds of greetings popped out. The 18th generations of ancestors all received the greatest greetings. Shimura Danzo was trembling with anger, his face was blue, and chakras fluctuations faintly appeared on his body. However, in the next second, a more terrifying breath erupted from Sarutobi Hiruzen. When he didn't expect it, the whole person smashed to the ground. What? Shimura Danzo let out a heart-wrenching scream. Sarutobi Hiruzen has no mercy chakra, like a mountain pressing him down. The internal bones are broken. A face was even more bloody. From today, all activities at the root will be suspended and Shimura Danzo Hokage's assistant position will be cancelled. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at Shimura Danzo with a cold voice. Hiruzen, this is my greatest tolerance. Quote. Shimura Danzo is silent. He understands what Sarutobi Hiruzen means. Don't let him get off the stage. The current handling is the maximum limit. Indeed, according to what he did, it is not an exaggeration to put him to death. Haruki raised her eyebrows. She was a good friend as expected. At this level, Sarutobi Hiruzen still couldn't bear to kill Shimura Danzo. After the Fourth Ninja World War in the original book, the roots were also disbanded, but the secret remnants were still active. In other words, the root may really become the root of Hokage, hidden in the shadows. However, after this incident, Shimura Danzo and Genbu received a fatal blow, making it difficult to get on stage again. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 95 Wood-Style Tsunade. The lively yesterday ended. With Sarutobi Hiruzen's sharp knife cutting the mess, it perfectly demonstrated the fairness and justice of being a Hokage, and it has won unanimous praise from the residents of Kimura. But he didn't feel happy. Before I changed it, I would definitely feel happy for the increase in my prestige. Now it's like a dumb eating Coptus chinensis, and there is no way to tell. He always felt that something was wrong. Master Hokage. Anbu appeared in front of him and handed a scroll. Sarutobi Hiruzen opened it, browsed it quickly, and immediately a little bit dumbfounded. It means that the starting point of all is that the two people of Function and Lation rebelled because they could not eat enough, which led to the exposure of Shimura Danzo's laboratory, which triggered a series of reactions. Yes, Master Hokage, according to Anbu's investigation, this is indeed the case. Why can Oki Kai gather so many people? Sarutobi Hiruzen turned off the scroll a little annoyed, and asked. I heard that he has a very good attitude on weekdays. Some neighbors witnessed Wu Tai and others voluntarily following him after being beaten up. After that, perhaps because of the excitement, more and more people follow him. Sarutobi Hiruzen lit his pipe lonely, just because of the excitement? He suddenly felt an inexplicable feeling. Had it not been for the gathering of so many people yesterday, he would never have solved Shimura Danzo so simply and rudely. Where is Haruki? Classes at the ninja school. Class? New Konoha bookstore is his business, is he so calm? Well, he rushed to the bookstore after class. Go down. Sarutobi Hiruzen waved his hand, and then pressed his forehead. He silently looked at today's Konoha Daily. The front page was shockingly saying how he was loved in Konoha. Is it because I am so careless? Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed. Haruki and Tsunade are about to marry. There is no reason for such an incident. Tsunade, get up. Haruki opened the curtains to let the sunshine in, and then he gently covered Tsunade's eyes. After slowly adapting, Tsunade grabbed his palm and pressed it on his face. Let me sleep more. The dazed Tsunade has a charming voice, unsuspectingly like a sleeping kitten being petted. Her golden hair fell from her neck like a waterfall, hanging in the air by the bed. Haruki squatted down and put his chin on the bed, almost touching her delicate face. He rolled his eyes and stretched out his hand to pinch her nose. A few seconds later, because he couldn't breathe air, Tsunade opened his mouth subconsciously, but it was blocked again. She immediately fell drowsy. He knocked Haruki's forehead hard to force him to let go of his tongue. Why? I'm almost out of breath. Where is it? Didn't I do artificial respiration with you again? Sophistry. Tsunade pushed him away. You go out and I change my clothes. Okay. Haruki got up, licked his lips subconsciously, closed the door and opened it again suddenly. You eat this morning. However, before he finished speaking, he was stunned. He didn't expect Tsunade to move so fast. He had already taken off all his shirts. A large swath of snow white came into view. Tsunade was also stunned. After a while, he subconsciously threw out the pajamas he had changed, covering Haruki's head. Get out. Haruki closed the door instantly and took off the warm and fragrant pajamas. What is this called? He dared to swear that he really didn't mean it. After waiting for a while, Tsunade opened the door and snatched the pajamas with a face of shame. Huh, smelly rascal. Quote. Haruki twitched the corners of her mouth. She was even more wrong than Doi. I just want to ask you what you have for breakfast. Full of gas, Tsunade turned around and put on her pajamas. Although she knew it was an accident, she was still shy to be seen. Since you feel that you are at a disadvantage, I'll show it to you too. Haruki said that she was about to take off her clothes, but was immediately grabbed by her hand. I eat lean meat porridge. Tsunade hurriedly stated the breakfast he was going to eat, which prevented his hooliganism. Haruki couldn't help laughing. Such Tsunade is really fun. However, it is definitely more fun after marriage. Seeing his smile, Tsunade immediately pushed him to the kitchen in a huff. Hurry up. She was bold and grandiose, sitting on the seat like a hero, with eyes like electricity, watching Haruki. Okay, I'll cook. Haruki opened the refrigerator with a smile on his face and took out the chopped meat. Tsunade's eyes gradually softened, and after a while, he lifted his chin and watched his movements expectantly. Haruki glanced at her, noticed her gentle appearance, and felt warm in her heart. But he didn't say anything, and continued to cook the porridge. Disliked that the time was too slow, he directly used the fire style to increase the firepower. Tsunade blinked, and this guy took chakra off business again. But I can forgive myself for eating early. Alright. Haruki handed her a bowl, be careful. Yeah. Tsunade picked up a spoon and drank the porridge obediently. Haruki touched her head. Inexplicably, he felt a little bit like he was feeding some pet. I have something to ask you. Haruki stopped his movements, hesitated for a few seconds, and asked, want to learn wood style? Wood style? Tsunade immediately raised his head and looked at him. Orochimaru was invited by Shimura Danzo to participate in the experiment and obtained a certain sample that can be implanted into your grandfather's cells to achieve the effect of using wood style. Tsunade was stunned, scooping the lean meat porridge up and down with a spoon, seeming to be thinking. You, Senju, have no wood style ninjas since your grandfather. Now that you have the opportunity, I think even if your grandfather knows, he would like to see you own wood style. After all, he loves you the most. Haruki looked at her and added another sentence. He is naturally willing to Tsunade to learn wood style. Although her strength in the original book is good, but her big move is basically kryptonite, if there is wood style, it will definitely improve. Moreover, she inherited the physique of the Senju family, which is definitely more suitable for wood style than Yamato. Okay, I agree. Tsunade looked at him, and the corners of his mouth were slightly cocked. If wood style can better protect you, then I am willing. She knew that Haruki in her situation would be very dangerous now and in the future. Although Haruki didn't know what she was thinking, she was still relieved when she saw her agree. He was worried that Tsunade could not pass his psychological barrier. He even wanted Orochimaru to bring Senju Hashirama and Pure World Reincarnation out to persuade her. However, this scene is quite scary to think about. After eating, Haruki waited for Tsunade to wash the dishes. He thought for a while, changed his shoes, and put Tsunade's shoes in front of the sofa. After a while, Tsunade walked out of the kitchen. Come here, I'll help you put on shoes. Haruki pointed to the sofa. Tsunade gave him a blank look and sat down. Haruki knelt down, grabbed her ankle, and changed her slippers. I think you are very suitable for wearing silk stockings. He glanced at his fleshy thighs, presumably showing nice stripes. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 96 Ring. Hey, I just don't wear it, so I won't satisfy your evil taste. Tsunade patted Haruki's head and smiled, give up your idea. Don't touch the man's head casually. Haruki grabbed the hand of her mischief, got up immediately, and said, today, I will take you to a good match. Why can't you touch the man's head? Tsunade was led out of the door, his big eyes filled with doubts. You will understand after you get married. Haruki glanced at her without explaining, but looked at her finger. What the hell? Tsunade pouted, the Riddler was really annoying. Do you like rings? Haruki gently rubbed her ring finger. There is no exchange of wedding rings in traditional weddings. I like what you sent. Tsunade blinked, his mouth turned into a smile. Not bad, would you say this now? When Chingshu looked down and saw this beautiful picture, he couldn't help but think of Fairy Zixia's single-eyed sweet smile. If you want to get married anyway, let you have some sweetness first. Tsunade forced her composure, and said with a natural look against Haruki's gaze. What about after marriage? Haruki retracted his gaze, took her, and hurried to the newly opened Jinyu Liangyuan shop. With the joint efforts of Uchiha Makoto and Hyuga Shuin, the research on synthetic diamonds was successful. I have to say that Sharingan works well with Byakugan. Of course, Makoto's efforts are also commendable. Being able to maintain the temperature of fire style within a certain range, this kind of control has surpassed Shunin. Haruki believes that only an opportunity is needed, and if chakra is sufficient, a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan that has never been recorded in the original book will be born. Because I received a letter from Rasa the day before yesterday that he would arrive soon, Haruki asked Hyuga to choose a shop as the beginning of the Golden Jade marriage in Konoha. After married, Tsunade froze for a moment, then tilted his head to look at the distant building, holding back his panic. I'll talk about it at that time. Oh. Haruki turned his head, only to see her profile. Under the sun, the jawline was very beautiful. Ahem. Tsunade couldn't bear such scorching gaze, and quickly changed the subject. What are we going to do with Jinyu Liangyuan? Choose a wedding ring for you. Wedding ring? Tsunade was attracted by the word, and she asked curiously, is it your custom? Well, it's worn on the ring finger of the left hand. It represents a bond of heart and soul. Haruki raised her hand and smiled. You should know that your left hand is connected to your heart. Tsunade's eyes are shining, Girls are born to love romance, and the ring undoubtedly hit her heart. I really want to visit your hometown. She sighed with emotion. It must be amazing to be able to raise a unique place like Haruki. But it is a pity that he said that his hometown is no longer in this world. The meaning is self-evident. Tsunade knew that Haruki became a wandering orphan due to the war, and his hometown was naturally destroyed. Haruki smiled. Stopped in front of a vast shop. The door is not opened now. But it still attracted the attention of many passers-by. Glittering fonts like moonlight. A good relationship between gold and jade. There is a kind of dream. Haruki opened the door to enter, and the shop was placed similarly in the previous life, with various accessories under the transparent glass. Because placer gold has not arrived, it is almost dominated by diamonds. It gives the illusion of stepping into the crystal castle in the fairy tale. Tsunade subconsciously covered his mouth, and his eyes became shining like diamonds. How about it? Haruki smiled triumphantly, and he knew that no woman could stop the charm of diamonds. It's valuable. Tsunade blurted out. Does it allow you to gamble for a long time? Yeah. Tsunade nodded in agreement, but after a few seconds, realized something was wrong. I mean, well, it's pretty. Is it too late for you to say this? Haruki was silent for a few seconds, and her voice sounded a little gloomy. Are you angry? Tsunade stood on tiptoe and hugged him, chin resting on his chest, looking up at him. It was my fault. She twisted her body and squirmed against him a few times. Forgive me, okay? Suddenly soft girlfriend. Haruki swallowed subconsciously. Feeling the pressure of his body, he nodded. It's already like this, why can't you forgive it? Tsunade laughed and stepped back, her feet light. She lifted her chin. The corners of her mouth couldn't help being proud. I already know your weakness. What weakness? Haruki leaned against the counter, searching for a suitable ring. He had previously measured Tsunade's ring finger. I won't tell you. Tsunade seemed very happy, and turned a half circle in front of him. Sniff. Haruki handed her a diamond ring, which is not the same as the diamond ring in the impression. It does not have large protruding diamonds, but uses finely divided star-like diamonds inlaid in the silver outer ring. Well. Tsunade consciously stretched out his left hand, slightly spreading his fingers. If you lose the bet in the future, you can't sell it. Haruki joked, holding her wrist. How can it be? Tsunade looked at the ring on the ring finger and heard what he said, and immediately retorted firmly. I won't take it down in my entire life. Such remarks are kept for marriage, so that you won't be speechless. Haruki squeezed her cheek, then couldn't help kissing again. Don't underestimate me. Tsunade was used to this kind of intimacy now, and he didn't react at all, and even wanted to return to kiss. But thinking that she was underestimated, she gave up the idea. Haruki didn't know what he missed. He smiled and said, I look forward to your performance. Wait, it will surprise you at that time. Tsunade doesn't care about 3721, at least put the cruel words here first. Well, weird desire to win. Anyway, on the night of the wedding, who is in charge may still be in charge. Haruki shrugged and asked, do you want other rings? No, I like this. Tsunade said. Shuin, trouble you to keep the account. Haruki shouted at Hyuga Shuin at the back door. Okay. Hyuga Shuin's body aroused, and her face was reddened and nodded. The previous interaction between Haruki and Tsunade was seen by her. The Hyuga family has more traditional customs. For her, both of them are too bold. She and Hyuga Hiyashi are very respectful. Because Tsunade had been fighting with Haruki, he lost the vigilance that a ninja should have and didn't notice Hyuga Kaoru. Fortunately, she got used to being molested by Haruki a lot. Otherwise, when she first fell in love, she would definitely run away. Shuin, one more thing, at the speed of Rosha and Hyuga Sayori, they should arrive in the afternoon. At that time, you will organize a group of Hyuga ninjas and make reference to the gold jewelry illustration book I gave you. The store will officially open on August 2nd. Okay. Hyuga Kaoru replied. Hey, are you going to get married? Tsunade couldn't help looking at Haruki. By the way, making an advertisement will not affect our wedding. On the contrary, as the first couple to wear a wedding ring, whoever gets married in the future will think of us. Haruki said affectionately, my princess is destined to shine. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 97. It's so shining, I'm not a light bulb. After Tsunade was silent for a few seconds, he suddenly laughed, and he was even happier seeing Haruki caught off guard. She found cute fun, especially for people who teased her, which was double happiness. You have gone bad, Haruki said with a loss. You obviously didn't do that before. I learned it from you. Tsunade stretched out his index finger and pressed his lips. I don't need to shine, I just want you to see me. Haruki was stunned suddenly, and he smiled immediately. The diamonds by the window are more dazzling, and Hyuga's face is completely red, as if the sound of steam will be heard in the next second. Is this the world about to get married? She couldn't understand, but she was shocked. Don't learn the good, learn the bad. Haruki held Tsunade's index finger, followed it down, and held her hand. But looking at you, you seem to like it very much. Tsunade appeared in a daze. So, you like bad women? Yeah, I like you, bad woman. Why am I broken? Tsunade frowned. Don't tell me, you know the consequences. You touch it. Haruki put his hand on his heart. You stole my heart. Tsunade didn't have time to react, but Hyuga, who was on the side, covered her face and ran away. After being interrupted like this, the two looked at each other and laughed. Evil taste. Tsunade poked Haruki with his elbow. Did you mean it? Where is it? I can't do it alone. You obviously cooperate with your body. Haruki touched his nose, and said, duplicate guy. Don't slander me. Tsunade curled his lips and said, you are the main culprit. I am the principal culprit, and you are the accomplice. This is called being a husband and wife. Where is the strange word? Tsunade gave him a blank look. We are not married yet. Okay. Haruki thought for a moment, then it's a mess. Tsunade's face froze. What did you say? I didn't hear clearly. It's nothing. Haruki smiled with a guilty heart. You got it wrong. I said you were getting more and more beautiful. The bull's head is wrong with the horse's mouth. Tsunade waved his hand and said, forget it, for the face of the ring, I will spare you today. The princess really has a broad mind. Haruki opened her hand and hugged her. I can feel it. It took Tsunade a moment to realize what he meant. She opened her mouth directly and took a bite on his neck. Asshole. Hey, who is more asshole now? Haruki took a breath, although it was not very painful, but she was not gentle either. A neat row of teeth marks suddenly appeared on his neck, faintly glowing with water stains. You are not a cat. Why do you bite me? Punish you. Tsunade squinted, unconsciously finding the most comfortable position in his arms. You are really bad. You are unreasonable. Haruki vomited. It's a woman's right to be unreasonable. Tsunade smiled naturally, especially in front of the person she likes. Haruki had nothing to say. Well, why do you feel sullen like a child? Tsunade noticed the depression on his face, and tiptoed slightly, like a kitten licking his wound. The country of rain. Even in summer, there is still continuous heavy rain. Jiraiya ended the day's task of warming up a young lady. Since receiving the copyright fee from Haruki, his wealth has skyrocketed. So with a compassionate heart, he sent warmth in the cold world. Jiraiya kept the rain out. He was not used to the rainy weather in Tenten. In his heart, Konoha made him feel kind. Just thinking of his task, he abandoned these extra sorrows again. After all, he is a ninja destined to become the teacher of the Son of Prophecy. Jiraiya returned to the wooden house. Teacher. Konan raised her head, and a paper crane fell on her shoulder. Under the influence of Haruki, she learned to be prudent. Even in a run-down house that no one patronizes, she has laid many traps as usual. The paper cranes are represented by Jiraiya, Nagato and Yahiko. Haruki is a medical ninja, you don't need to learn from him. Jiraiya glanced at her, sat on the floor, and asked, where are Nagato and Yahiko? Practicing. And you? Jiraiya looked down and saw a chicken in her hand, eating chicken at noon today. No, this is what I use to practice medical ninjutsu. Konan stabbed it as he said, and immediately sealed his hands. A green chakra fell on it, and the wound gradually healed. The corners of Jiraiya's mouth twitched, and a child was taken alive by Harumi. I really don't know what Haruki said to them last time, so that each became a little strange. After a few seconds, he was a little surprised and asked, this is healing jutsu? Yeah. Konan nodded and started poking the chicken again. It seems that you are indeed very talented. Jiraiya is a little emotional. He doesn't know how to medical ninjutsu, but he knows healing jutsu. This is a very difficult basic medical ninjutsu. Being able to learn in such a short time and without the guidance of a teacher, Konan's talent and diligence can be seen in Madara. It's teacher Haruki who taught well. Gone. Why is it Mr. Haruki? Jiraiya has a feeling of vomiting blood. She just said that no teacher taught her medical ninjutsu, but she was beaten in the face in a blink of an eye. The student who was struggling to teach himself actually called another teacher. He looked left and right, and finally poured a cup of tea and drank it. By the way, teacher, there is a letter for you. Konan remembered the letter sent in the morning, let go of the tortured cock in his hand, and turned and walked into the room. Haruki's? Jiraiya took the envelope and asked, guessing. Yeah. Konan nodded. Let me see what this guy wrote. Jiraiya said with a smile while tearing the envelope, it just so happens that my new book, Intimate Paradise, can let him run it for me. Konan's face suddenly turned red. She has watched Love in Paradise. It should be said that because Jiraiya's cover-up look was very suspicious, she joined Nagato and Yahiko to find a chance and saw this book. But I didn't expect it to be a close fight between men and women. Teacher, what's wrong with you? Konan regained his senses and saw Jiraiya look sad and angry. Could it be that Haruki-sensei had something wrong? He's fine, it's me. Jiraiya sat slumped on the tatami mats and sighed. This day is here after all. What? Konan leaned in front of him in confusion, and saw the content of the letter clearly. It turned out that it was a marriage invitation letter from Haruki and Tsunade. We have sex at noon. Jiraiya looked fiercely at the cock Konan was using for the experiment. He wanted to kill. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 98 Gold Miner Afternoon. Haruki went to the gate to greet Luo Sha. I didn't plan to come, after all, it was just handing over the placer gold. In his opinion, Luo Sha is no different from airplanes, purely a means of transportation. The two are not very familiar, there is nothing to talk about. If I change to Sasori of Red Sand, I have the same interests and can talk for a long time. However, Luosha has a special status as the apprentice of 3rd Kazekage. Tsunade and Konoha village had just ceased fighting, and they did not trust each other. So Luosha was stopped by the two door gods as suspicious. After Haruki came out in time to guarantee, Rasa and Hyuga Sayori were able to enter Konoha. Come with me. Haruki didn't say any greetings, and took the two directly to the warehouse behind Jin Yuliang. Luo Sha knew what he meant, and told the two of them to retreat to the door, and immediately summoning got out of the storage scroll. Piles of gold dust filled the warehouse quickly under the control of his chakra. After a while, a golden hill appeared. Thank you, Luo Sha. Although Haruki has no interest in money, he still feels a little emotional when he sees the full range of gold. It made him feel like a giant dragon guarding a large number of golden stones. It's nothing. Luo Sha shook her head. Part of the reason why he came here in person was because of the preciousness of placer gold, and partly because Tsunade's gold journey went quite smoothly. No, it can no longer be described in the word smooth. It's more like getting rich overnight. He still can't understand why the daimyo of the Country of the Wind has spent years helping Tsunade's money to buy the gold necklace that Haruki and 3rd Kazekage talked about. Just because of the poignant love of his so-called ancestors. But this story is also false. Luo Sha did not hold back, and asked Haruki. He also asked his teacher before, but 3rd Kazekage suddenly turned into money and told him, I don't care what the reason is, as long as we can make money. If it wasn't for Rosha to be sure that no one could seize or control 3rd Kazekage, he seriously suspected that it had fallen into the eyes of money and it was not his teacher who gave up thinking. Oh, you said this? In fact, it is not difficult to understand. If you want to know why he bought this necklace, you have to think about what will happen to him or what will be rewarded after he gets the necklace. Luo Sha fell silent when she heard Haruki's question. After a while, he, like his teacher, gave up thinking. Haruki couldn't help but smile. No wonder Luo Sha will use very stupid methods to test Gaara in the future. It was a miracle that Gaara didn't betray the village. He got fame and praise. Qingshu didn't sell Guanzi anymore and explained to him. The true or false of this story is not mentioned. He is willing to spend a lot of money to buy the necklace of his ancestors in order to express his meaning to his followers. In addition, he also revealed goodwill to Tsunade. It is not that he does not know the tricks, but he kills 2 birds with 1 stone. No, he should get 3. After all, Tsunade was defeated, and under normal circumstances he wanted to ask him for money. Luo Sha was a little suspicious of life for a moment. Your routine is really layer after layer. Sure enough, I was still too simple. Luo Sha understood the reason why his teacher didn't think, and she was really comfortable lying down to make money. I probably understand. He felt that it was easy to be a ninja, and he didn't have to think about such complicated things. At the same time, I realized why Tsunade was so poor before. Well, it's a rare visit to Konoha, so you can have fun for a few days. No need. Luo Sha thought for a while, refused. Now Tsunade is a waste of time, I am not suitable for playing here. It's up to you. Haruki asked without reluctance, how is Tsunade's underground train built? We have hired a team of Earth-style ninjas, and we have already reached Konoha Death Forest, but we may have to trouble you all the way forward. So fast? Haruki was a little surprised. He knew that chakra was convenient, but the speed still surprised him. But it also proved that his thinking was not wrong. Chakra used to fight is really wasteful. The passage of Konoha village, we will communicate with Lord Hokage at that time. Suddenly, Haruki had some ideas, so he could implement it by taking this opportunity. Okay. Luo Sha nodded. Yes, Haruki-sama, there is one more thing. Sasori asked me to tell you a message that he recently got a lot of new ideas inspired by you, and waited until it was completed. Later, he may come to you. Oh, Haruki showed interest. Is the puppet version of Gundam coming out? I see, you tell him, you can contact me in advance. I will convey it. Haruki looked to the side again and did not speak Hyuga Sayori. He said, this time I asked you to come back because there is a new product, diamonds. You bring a batch to Tsunade to see how it works. Okay, my lord. Hyuga Sayori nodded. You have to understand that whether you want to sell high prices for diamonds or gold, it's best to be bound to love. Haruki couldn't help but say, remembering the increasingly materialized love of previous lives. Haruki-sama, what if someone wants to copy? Hyuga Sayori asked, frowning. Certificate. The certificate written by Master Funging himself is a certificate recognized by Tsunade. No one can imitate it. Haruki smiled slightly, and then changed his voice, but this kind of certificate doesn't need too much, and things are rare. We only need to ensure that we occupy the most high-end market, and the rest will be distributed. It doesn't matter. Rasa and Hyuga Sayori were stunned. This approach is simply a genius. They know very well that most people like to be unique. And the certificate happens to meet their needs. No matter how others imitate, the certificate recognized by Fengying cannot be compensated by technology. Speaking of this, let me give you a suggestion. A set of certificates is specially issued for the nobles of the Kingdom of Wind, numbered in the order of 1 to 100, and it must be guaranteed that number 1 belongs to the daimyo. After Hyuga Sayori listened, her eyes were horribly bright. She took a deep breath and said, associating jewelry with identity, jewelry represents identity, and these nobles will inevitably stir up madness. And Luo Sha's body trembled involuntarily, terrible profiteer. He was an eye-opener today. People pay money unknowingly, and still willingly. He secretly made up his mind to be careful of Haruki, or he would definitely become a money-making machine. What he has to do is to surpass his teacher and become the strongest wind shadow, not a gold miner. After Rasa and Hyuga Sayori left, Haruki called Uchiha Makoto, asked her to take on the job of a clerk, and notified the members to summon the first economic supplement meeting organized by Shaw. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 99 Special Economic Area, the same river and sailboat. But unlike the last time, Shinji Hira was late. After Haruki and other 8 people waited for almost half an hour, he was late. The situation at the roots is very bad now. Shinji took a breath and talked about the reason for his lateness. Related to Haruki, after Sarutobi Hiruzen's order was issued, Shimura Danzo stopped the movement of the roots. But because of the prospects, the roots are panic. Except for a small number of people who are loyal to Shimura Danzo who are still active, a considerable number of people have already thought of withdrawing from the roots. And Sarutobi Hiruzen is also willing to be the picker. After all, under the cruel training mechanism of the roots, the ninja's strength is on average higher than that of Anbu. The reason Shinji Hira came late is because Shimura Danzo has recently checked closely, and he slipped out and wasted time. Everyone here knows something about root destruction. Like Tsunade or Hyuga Hiyashi, you know the ins and outs. The only ones who are confused are Namikaze Minato, Uzumaki Kushina and Uchiha Makoto. They can guess that there is their own organization behind it. After all, the 2 protagonists, Oji Kai and Hyuga Hiyashi are here. Haruki thought for a while and probably explained the matter. To be honest, it is not a particularly glorious method, but for Shimura Danzo, it can only be said to be a tooth for a tooth. When Shimura Danzo's crime was explained, no one felt wrong. Well, let's talk about business. Haruki gave a light cough, attracting everyone's attention. Today we are holding the first supplementary meeting of our organization. Simply put, there are 3 things. First, the Golden Jade marriage will open on August 2nd. I hope the Ministry of Commerce will make employment contract, hire enough salespersons. Okay. Oshima Yoshiyuki responded immediately, I will discuss this with Hyuga Kaoru. Well, the second thing may require the cooperation of several of your departments. Haruki stood up and took out a map from the storage scroll. After spreading it out, it was Konoha. This street was the place where we held the celebration last time. From the center of Konoha, the Hokage building is not too far nor too close. I plan to buy the whole street and construct a very special economic area. How special is it? Yoshiyuki Oshima showed an expression of interest. He was the first member to follow Haruki. Although he had a life-saving grace at the beginning, he was also attracted by Haruki's ideas and business methods. But knowing so much, I have never heard him say very special 4 words. Playground, or light novel paradise. Haruki put up a finger to answer. If someone asks what is the most valuable in the past life, there will definitely be many people answering the IP. Disney, Marvel, Journey to the West, Hongwang, Xingyue and so on. Create a composite industry, the so-called big entertainment concept. The same is true for what Haruki is going to do. New Konoha bookstore already has a lot of well-known novels, especially Sword Art Online. Someone is willing to pay for something like an elf-themed hotel. We want this street to exist as a landmark of Konoha and even the Land of Fire, just like Hokage Rock. Once such a concept is formed in people's minds, it means that we have a bright future for money. Haruki opened immediately. Shikai explained how to build a theme park. After 2 hours, the explanation is over. Haruki didn't say any more, leaving them time to digest. But seeing Tsunade in a daze, he couldn't help but smile. He suddenly remembered the appearance of advanced mathematics classes in his previous life. After bending down and picking up the rubber, he never understood it again. Oshima Yoshiyuki listened with gusto. Although there are still many things he can't understand, he understands at least half of it. Haruki looked at the 8 people in front of him, and finally appointed Oshima Yoshikazu as the person in charge, with Oki Kai as his assistants. The third thing involves the infrastructure and transportation sectors. Hyuga Hiyashi immediately raised his head and looked at Haruki. To be honest, he was not interested in the things discussed earlier. As the next patriarch of the Hyuga family, he is not short of money. But after Genbu and Shimura Danzo, Hyuga and Shi talked with him throughout the night and reached an agreement. While Haruki is alive, the Hyuga family will fully support him. However, what Haruki said next made him feel puzzled. Hiyashi, your task is to build a train station and renovate a highway to our economic area, which will be at least 3 times larger than the current street. I don't quite understand what it does. Hyuga Hiyashi also knew Haruki's temper, so he asked without hesitation. It's actually very simple. Let me give you an example. One of the two barbecue restaurants has delicious meat, clean and hygienic, and ample space, while the other is the opposite. Which one would you choose? Hyuga Hiyashi was startled slightly. He is not stupid. I quickly understood the meaning of Haruki's words. The role of infrastructure is also ready to emerge. He suddenly felt a broad and cheerful feeling. Hyuga Hiyashi couldn't help feeling a little bit. Why has no one thought of such a simple truth before? When Haruki saw that he understood, he smiled slightly. Although Konoha is a ninja village, there are more civilians. Building trains and highways is naturally useful. And he will not be limited to Konoha. The huge market of the Country of Fire makes him even more coveted. I hope you can complete these things on August 2nd. By that time, we will put Tsunade's wedding and me in our economic zone, which will almost eliminate all advertisements. And I got the news that the Fire Country daimyo will come in person. Haruki glanced at Tsunade, who was wandering beyond the sky. The title of her princess was canonized by the name of the Country of Fire, and with the invitation of Sarutobi Hiruzen, he did not refuse. Perhaps there is one more thing when the daimyo comes over. Tax. Earlier, Oki-chin had told Haruki that the Country of Fire wanted to collect taxes from the Shin Konoha bookstore. It just so happened that Haruki also wanted to talk to the daimyo about other things. For example, let Namikaze Minato act as the guardian of the 12 ninjas. At this moment, there are still a few years of calm before the Third Ninja War, and Minato has nothing else. It just happens to be done. It should be said that Minato can do much more than that. In the following time, Haruki discussed with them for 2 more hours, basically explaining clearly what to do. After a meeting, Uchiha Mikoto is the most tiring. In order to record many of the contents of the meeting, she even opened Sharingan. An afterimage of both hands formed on the table. Haruki suddenly felt that it was a wise choice to let her serve as a clerk. He remembered the painful experience of listening to a recorder to write meeting minutes after a meeting in his previous life. Because some leaders have too heavy accents, they can't speak clearly, making him want to die. Sharingan is really good. Haruki touched his chin, and didn't know what to do with Tsunade. The system would reward these I-type blood successors. This is a question worth pondering. He now has all kinds of ninjutsu, but only wood style is the limit of blood succession. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 100 Jiraiya. Haruki finally had a preliminary impression of the power accumulated by the Hyuga family. For a long time, due to his own strength and the influence of the original work, he felt that the Hyuga family was nothing. But in Konoha, and even in the entire ninja world, he can be called a giant. After the meeting, it only took Hyuga Hiyashi an hour to complete the acquisition task assigned to him by Haruki. And no one took the opportunity to raise the price, and there were no so-called nails. It went smoothly, and at the same time, it saved half of the cost that Haruki expected. In fact, Haruki's thinking has not changed. This is not a past life after all. After that, Haruki and Tsunade came to the Hokage building and talked about it. Sarutobi Hiruzen is the actual administrator of Konoha village. In order to avoid trouble, he still has to inform him. When Sarutobi Hiruzen heard that the two were planning to use this street as the wedding venue, he waved his hand and agreed to their request without any hesitation. On the one hand, because Konoha's interests are not involved, on the other hand, it is because of Haruki and Tsunade's identities. Especially Tsunade, now the only seedling of the Senju clan, Sarutobi Hiruzen will not treat her too badly, so as not to cause gossip. After obtaining permission from Sarutobi Hiruzen, a different kind of street rose up in Konoha. The construction in the past month has attracted much attention. Because it is so strange. The exterior screen-scrolling building with a sense of science fiction, the Sword Art Online theme hotel, the surrounding shops of Slam Dunk, and the light novel playground have been erected from the ground. The street named Akihabara by Haruki has no publicity at all, and it has gone viral. It can only be said that there are too few entertainment methods in this era. Now Akihabara has completed 2/3, and the work will be handed over in the next few days. Standing in Haruki's office, Oshima Yoshiyuki said, "According to your instructions, we have opened many facilities. According to the feedback, the effect is very good." To be specific, Haruki was a little curious, and didn't know which of these simple Konoha villagers preferred compared to previous lives. The best business is the Sword Art Online theme hotel. I didn't expect this. I thought there should be more people in the playground. Haruki raised his head in surprise. After he arranged it, he didn't care about it. He didn't know exactly what it was going to be. If everything must be done personally, he may become the next Zhuge Liang to die. Is the playground messed up by them? The business in the amusement park is also good. Oshima Yoshiyuki smiled, but the theme hotel, we provide each couple with costumes of Asuna and Kirito. Maybe they prefer this alien style. Bar. Haruki twitched his lips. He understood why theme hotels had the best business. Who came up with this idea? Takashita Yu. This name is a bit familiar. Haruki was stunned, always feeling like he'd heard it somewhere. The illustrator at Shin Konoha bookstore used to be in the metropolis of the Country of Fire. Oshima Yoshiyuki reminded. Oh. Haruki remembered that it was the guy who wanted to add money to paint the cover of Jiraiya's novel. Hey, no one can escape the true fragrance theorem of the famous philosopher Wang Jingzai. I have never been willing to draw an exposed cover, but now I am proposing such an idea, and the mental journey involved is incredible. Takashita Yu has been the exclusive painter of Shinkoi bookstore for a long time. After a period of inspection, Oki Tomohiro promoted him to art director. Seeing that Haruki didn't know much about it, Oshima Yoshiyuki introduced his current situation. Haruki nodded. After the establishment of the Shaw organization, he carried out reforms in accordance with the modern company system. The position naturally changed accordingly. But in any case, they all occupy more than half of the shares. Others may be able to delegate power, but publicity cannot be ignored. Haruki is well aware of the role of propaganda in the media, the so-called murder of the invisible uncrowned king. Haruki. A carefree voice rang outside the door. Before Haruki answered, the incoming person had already entered the office. He is tall and has a white hedgehog head and wears an oily forehead protector. The only dress in the ninja world, it is Jiraiya. Upon seeing this, Oshima Yoshiyuki bowed slightly and left immediately. I thought you would be back on my wedding day. Haruki smiled, got up to the coffee table, sat down across from him, and poured him a cup of tea. Jiraiya is not welcome, drank it all, and said, there is no alcohol. Wait a few days, drink whatever you want, no matter how good it is, I will get you too. Hey, I'm a big dog. I saw Akihabara you did before I came. It's great, especially Asuna. Here you are. Haruki threw him a black card with a red dragon flag embroidered on it. I will pay for all your consumption in Akihabara. Refreshing. Jiraiya immediately put away the black card. I think you, Akihabara, is missing something. What? Hot spring. Jiraiya showed an intoxicated expression. Think about how comfortable it is to have a hot spring bath after a tiring day. Do you have to get a mixed bath for you? Haruki asked abruptly. Okay. Jiraiya blurted out, and then realized that something was wrong. Haha, I think it's a mixed bathing for men and women. Everyone can help each other, rub their backs or something. Haruki shook his head, and said, if there is a mixed bathing of men and women, you will only see one situation at that time, full of machos and big men. Quote. Forget it, I'll think of a solution by myself. Jiraiya shuddered at the thought of this scene. Hey, if only I had Byakugan. If you were heard by the Hyuga ninja, I'm afraid I will vomit blood. Haruki teased. Although he had such thoughts in his previous life, it is a pity that he did not open his eyes at the age of 18. Whether it's Sharingan or Byakugan, ahem, I'll just talk about it. Jiraiya smiled and changed the subject, took out a book and handed it to Haruki, a wedding gift for you. Why? To love heaven. Haruki raised his head and said, are you serious? Give me this kind of book. Isn't this just right? Jiraiya blinked. I still need to use you to teach? Haruki looked at him contemptuously, and then said with awe-inspiring expression, in order to prevent you from poisoning the second person, I will reluctantly accept it. Jiraiya raised his thumb and said, your shameless level is so true to me. Haruki was stunned, and stared at him, and the office was suddenly full of joy. Okay, I'm going to report something to the teacher. Jiraiya stood up, walked a few steps, and said, Tsunade, leave it to you. I will keep watching you. Don't disappoint me. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 101. The Engagement Ceremony. August 2nd. Akihabara. Although it was summer, with the help of the Yamanaka clan, pink sakura flowers slowly drifted down the street, creating a sense of dreams. Tsunade was picked up by Uzumaki Mito early in the morning. In addition, Uchiha Makoto and Uzumaki Kushina, the two of Haruki's apprentices, were assigned identities similar to bridesmaids. Haruki watched the bride being snatched away, and didn't even say a few words. After that, Hyuga Hiyashi and Hyuga came to the door and brought the groom's clothes. A black kimono called Monsuke Haori Hakama, how about it? Haruki was a little nervous and looked left and right in front of the mirror. Hyuga Shuin couldn't help but smile. I didn't expect Haruki to have such a moment. She looked at it and said, it fits very well, I don't think anyone can match your brilliance today. Hyuga Hiyashi looked at her in surprise, but nothing was said. Haruki nodded in satisfaction. The black kimono, worn on his body, is elegant and chic, like a noble son. Thank you both for a special trip. Haruki turned around and thanked him. He and Tsunade are not familiar with the wedding process, and the Hyuga family has enough traditional history and knows best. Hyuga and C volunteered to act as MC. This is what we are supposed to do. Hyuga Hiyashi hurriedly responded, Princess Tsunade is now putting on makeup, we can go to the banquet and wait. It is proposed that the mind of Masawa Haruki, he didn't want to stay in the room until the wedding began. The wedding venue was in the classical loft in the center of Akihabara. The walls are full of sakura flowers. At this time, the crowd was already full, and seeing the arrival of Chingshu, they sent their blessings. Haruki smiled back one by one. When I arrived in the attic, my facial muscles were already stiff. But happy after all. Here, Jiraiya waved to him. Haruki looked over and found that he and Orochimaru were sitting together with the fruits in front of them. At this time Jiraiya was eating a banana and put his left hand on Orochimaru's shoulder. On the other hand, Orochimaru looked disgusted. You two came very early. Haruki sat in front of them, picking up a banana and peeling it apart. High-level Konoha, such as Sarutobi Hiruzen and others, barely arrived. They belong to the VIPs at the finale. In particular, Sarutobi Hiruzen and Uzumaki Mito will take the place of Haruki and Tsunade's parents to receive the toast. Because Haruki is an orphan, Tsunade is similar, only Uzumaki Mito can be called her real relative. Well, we Sanin have a deep friendship, alas, now Tsunade is separated from us, should come earlier. Jiraiya sighed and finished the banana. I want to start a little bit. Haruki patted him on the shoulder, at least you were at the wedding. Jiraiya glared at him. You're good at everything except for a long mouth. I can't say something nice about the wedding day. Where is Orochimaru? What gift are you going to give me? Haruki held back his smile and looked at Orochimaru again, with some expectation in his eyes. What do you want? Orochimaru asked rhetorically. Okay, I know. Haruki shrugged. Forget it, it's okay. Just finish what I told you. What's the matter? Jiraiya leaned over immediately, looking dissatisfied. What are you two doing behind my back? Don't call me if there is a good thing. It has nothing to do with you. Orochimaru pressed his head and pushed a distance away. What does it mean is nothing to do with me? Jiraiya's eyes widened. It really has nothing to do with you. Haruki casually took a fragrant pear and stuffed it into his mouth. Not too much, Jiraiya said angrily after eating the fragrant pear in a few times. At this moment, there was a hustle and bustle outside the door. Haruki looked up and saw that it was Sarutobi Hiruzen. Walking with him was a middle-aged man with a big fan. Such a unique dress is undoubtedly the name of the country of fire. Haruki stood up to greet. No matter what happens on weekdays, today is a special period. As a groom, he should maintain basic etiquette. This is Haruki, right? Da Ming smiled and opened a paper fan. Sure enough, he is a talent. A great reputation. Haruki responded with a smile. Today at your wedding, give you a little heart. The daimyo waved his hand, and someone came in carrying 9 boxes of gold and silver jewelry. Very vulgar and very proud. Haruki naturally accepted it. Daimyo may be the richest person in the ninja world. Of course, he still doesn't know what Haruki in front of him is planning to fight him at the moment, otherwise he would not take the initiative to make an opponent. After Haruki greeted the daimyo, he did not return to the table. He has no relatives, and it is impossible for Sarutobi Hiruzen to welcome him. I can only be the greeter myself. However, when the guests behind saw him personally receiving him, they felt quite flattered. After getting married, Haruki's position is probably second only to Hokage, and can be on the same level as the patriarchs of your families. Over time, the attic was basically full. Many more people have no chance to come in. But Haruki was not stingy, and the entire Akihabara was full of banquets. Almost half of Konoha came to join in the fun. If it weren't for Akihabara to be too small, I'm afraid it would be several times more lively. By 12 o'clock, Tsunade finally arrived. She is led by Uzumaki Mito, with Makoto and Kushina on the left and right. Haruki realized that Uzumaki Mito in front of him was actually a clone. As Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, she cannot appear. Haruki looked at Tsunade. She is in a white and flawless kimono, wearing a hat, her cheeks are slightly red, she has light makeup, and her lips are shiny. Tsunade saw his dull look on his face, smiled slightly, and stretched out his hand. Haruki quickly caught it. The MC's Hyuga and C coughed slightly and said, the wedding begins now. Uzumaki Mito walked to the middle, and was tied with Sarutobi Hiruzen. They have to speak first. Sarutobi Hiruzen's speech is more official. Thank you everyone for taking the time to attend the wedding of Haruki and Tsunade. As a teacher, I can be regarded as watching Tsunade grow up. It is not easy to have a good home now. Finally, I hope that the two in Konoha can get better and better. Good. After the speech, there was full applause. Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled and nodded in response. After a while, Uzumaki Mito picked up the greeting card, put it down after a moment of silence, and looked at both of them. Tsunade is my favorite granddaughter with Hashirama. I don't have any requirements, I just hope that Wuyu will be carefree from now on. I promise you. Haruki said seriously. That's fine. Uzumaki Mito wiped the corners of his eyes and stopped talking. Haruki tightened Tsunade's left hand, and said in a low voice, it's okay, grandmother is just happy. Hyuga and C raised their hands at the right time, and soft and cheerful music played. Next is the wedding vows. You speak first. Tsunade touched Haruki's elbow. Shy. Haruki smiled and coughed lightly in her angry eyes. Okay, let me say it first, listen carefully. I never thought I would meet you, but destiny sent you to me. Thank you for believing in me and liking me. No matter now or in the future, I will always be with you by your side. You can confirm to me time and time again, so please advise me for the rest of your life. Tsunade smiled from his heart. She said sweetly, my vow is very simple. Haruki, Please accept all the moonlight from now on and I love you. Haruki took a deep breath, his eyes were a little wet unconsciously. Tsunade has never seen this scene of him. She stood on tiptoe, kissed his eyes, a few seconds later, whispered, I love you. Namikaze Minato took the lead and gave a whistle. With a very envious look, clapped his palms vigorously. Continual applause immediately sounded. Finally, there is a banquet. Before the start, Haruki and Tsunade toasted 3 glasses of Uzumaki Mito and Sarutobi Hiruzen 3 times in total. 3 to 3 is 9, which means forever and grow old together. Afterwards, salute the guests and make a toast together. During the period, Tsunade went out and put on a coat, the so-called lust. Red and gorgeous, more in line with the wedding atmosphere. The wedding banquet lasted until the evening, and a batch of meals had been changed. Haruki was forced to fight Jiraiya for an afternoon drink. Orochimaru was added halfway. The end result is that Jiraiya is unconscious. And Haruki and Orochimaru quietly use chakra to calm the alcohol. At night, Haruki arranged the fireworks prepared by Minato. Yoshio finally came in handy. He and Tsunade paced slowly in the corridor. Gorgeous star spots rose above their heads. There is another love sentence after another. Ah, it's really numbing. Tsunade squinted her eyes, her smile filled her cheeks. Well, do you like it? How do you like it? Like my heart, as long as it doesn't stop beating, the like will not disappear. You are also very nauseous. I learn it from you. It's not bad for husbands to sing and women to follow. Haruki opened the door, lost her disguise, and lay on the bed. To take a bath. Tsunade sniffed, you smell of alcohol all over you. Together, Haruki stood up and invited her to form a team. Dream. Instead, Tsunade nodded. All right. Haruki knew that she was thin-skinned, so he didn't tease her anymore, and ran to take a shower. After coming out, I saw Tsunade put on pajamas. Hey, I should have taken it off for you. Haruki shook his head regretfully. Wait, you have a chance. Tsunade gave him a blank look and entered the bathroom. Haruki was stunned for a moment, and said these words quietly. He lay on the bed and waited. After a long time, Tsunade approached him nervously. After Haruki's explanation, Tsunade drove the ball into a man and rushed towards him in a tight-knit posture. Hey, have you made a mistake in the system? Haruki, who is rich in theoretical knowledge, is naturally not afraid of such a novice, avoiding the line of defense on her left and right, drops of sweat fluttering, and the oval ball hits the bullseye. With a little understanding, rugby is a very intense sport, and physical contact and injuries are common. The room was suddenly dark, only the moonlight and fireworks outside the window reflected them. I thought you were going to be in the bathroom tonight. How can it be? Rugby is different from basketball in that it is oval. Congratulations to you and Tsunade for completing the first major event in life. Considering your physical reasons, I will reward you with Sage Body and Sage Mode. Close black lens bracket. Shut. For physical reasons, don't slander your host. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. I think so. Haruki asked, standing up, do you want to turn off the lights? Haruki beckoned to her and hugged her. I teach you to play football. However, the system is just a ruthless publishing machine and cannot talk to Haruki. Tsunade was saying no all night, but I didn't say it. Chapter 102 Sage Body Wake Up, 3 rods in the sun. Haruki squinted his eyes slightly. The bright summer sunshine fell on him through the curtains. Although the light was mostly weakened by the curtain cloth, it was still a bit dazzling for him who had just woke up. After a few seconds to adapt, a sleeping and beautiful face squeezed into his sight. A little blush remained on Tsunade's cheeks, and the sweat from exhaustion wetted her blonde hair, and her bangs stuck together in clusters. Quiet and some kind of flattery. Haruki did not speak, admiring the beautiful picture in front of him. For a moment, Tsunade frowned slightly, she felt a little uncomfortable, and a hint of fear appeared in the meaning of diving. But she was not awake, confused with a weak tone of begging for mercy. Let me sleep for a while, don't make trouble. There was a bang. Haruki retreated a little. Tsunade's expression eased. The morning is really uncomfortable. Haruki smiled bitterly and shook his head, but he was not someone who only cared about his own feelings. He gently straightened out Tsunade's scattered bangs and exposed his forehead. He leaned forward, gave a kiss, and got up immediately. Haruki frowned extremely uncomfortably. He picked up his clothes and took a shower in the bathroom. The smell and slimy feeling disappeared, and the whole person regained vitality. Haruki exhaled. He got Sage Body and Sage Mode last night. Among other things, his current body is indeed much better. It stands to reason that Tsunade, as a Senju clan, has also inherited a strong physique, which can be regarded as a continuation of Sage Body. But compared with him, he still pales in comparison and is slightly inferior. It can be seen from the situation this morning that Haruki has regained strength, but Tsunade has not. Facts have proved that the Sage Body given by the system is extremely authentic, very likely the most primitive Ashura physique. Haruki estimated that he should be able to fight Senju Hashirama now. Withdrawing his thoughts, he went to the room again, looked at Tsunade who was still sleeping, and couldn't help touching his nose. They both went to bed at 5 or 6 in the morning. Fortunately, the system sent Sage Body in time, otherwise, his performance would be even worse. Haruki didn't bother Tsunade either, leaving a note on the table. She said that she had already prepared breakfast in the refrigerator, so she could just warm it up a little by herself. A heart shape was drawn at the end to express his good morning. Haruki opened the door, only then did he notice that the sun was approaching overhead. When Tsunade gets up, it should be lunch. He smiled, and the hot weather also made him feel comfortable. Calm and cool naturally, the ancestors were right. Everything is good in a good mood. Haruki came to the ninja school and heard a very lively sound when he entered the gate. He looked down the source, it was a basketball court. After the exhibition match between Hitaki Kakashi's team and Sarutobi Asuma's team, the sport of basketball was completely popular in schools. The original basketball court was simply not enough, and I contacted Oki-kai to repair 3 more, and barely met the needs of the students. At this time, Haruki saw the number 1 basketball court. He stopped because there was an acquaintance on the court. Uchiha Obito. His vigorous figure is as if he is in the realm of no one. Haruki did not take care of the ninja school for a while because of the wedding. But Uchiha Obito is aware of the changes. His own image has been transformed by Haruki, and with the special training of Namikaze Minato and Uchiha Makoto who spared no effort, his strength has skyrocketed, and he is now second only to Kakashi. Facts have proved how huge the impact of the environment is. Under the admiration of more and more students, Obito gradually changed his bad habits in the past, and suddenly has a tendency to approach the second Minato. A genius can always turn the flattery of him into reality. The formation of a virtuous circle created Obito today. Haruki waited for a while, and when Obito's game ended, cheers rang out all around. And Obito responded with a smile. It seems to be generous and decent on the podium. Until he saw Haruki, his smile suddenly stiffened. I wanted to run, but didn't dare, so I could only walk in front of him obediently. Teacher Haruki. Good fight, Haruki said with a smile. So. Obito trembled and shook his head quickly. Did you come to my wedding yesterday? Haruki asked suddenly, thinking of something. Here. I went with Sister Makoto. Oh, what gift did you give? I didn't give it, but Makoto's sister and the others gave it on behalf of the Uchiha clan. Is this wrong? Makoto is Makoto, and you are you. Haruki raised an eyebrow. Is it because I'm not good enough to you? No, Obito blurted out, again with a tangled look. But I don't have anything to give. Who said no? Haruki patted him on the shoulder. You do 30 test papers, just as a gift for me. Huh. Obito's expression solidified, and he was sluggish for a while, and raised 3 trembling fingers. 30. Less? How many more photos will I add to you? Haruki smiled. No. Enough is enough. Obito said with a weeping face, shaking his head like a rattle. I heard you skipped class. Haruki changed the subject at random. You said you can skip class if you have grades like Kakashi. Obito chuckled, thinking that he was going to be liquidated, and said quickly, you are a hero who stands up to the ground, one of the famous Konoha Shwambi. What you say should count, right? Naturally counts. Haruki nodded. Obito was about to breathe a sigh of relief when he heard his next sentence. But being discovered by the substitute teacher is too embarrassing. Obito finally understood the reason. The next time I was discovered, it won't be solved by 30 test papers. Quote. Obito's body shook consciously, and Haruki Sunny's smile was a call to hell. I see. His voice revealed weakness. I can't hear it so quietly. Got it. Obito shouted immediately. This is decent. Haruki couldn't help laughing, and it was a rare pleasure to molest the future boss. It's a pity that no one can share such fun. Obito glanced at him secretly, and he was sure that this teacher definitely had a serious evil taste. But he has nothing to do with this. I can't beat, and I can't say it. Can only accept with tears. Oh, what is the size of these hard days? How is the situation in the class lately? Haruki originally planned to ask the substitute teacher, but now that he met Obito, asking him has the same effect. Fine. Obito pondered for a moment, and then suffocated 3 words. He didn't think it was any different from the original, except that no one laughed at him. Oh, one more thing, the school will hold a basketball game, and our class will also participate. Asuma leads the team. Asuma, you and Kakashi didn't fight for the captain's position. Haruki was a little surprised. Are children so Buddhist nowadays? Obito hesitated and said, even though that guy is stinky, but people will still take us to eat for several days, I don't bother to fight with him. Quote. Haruki was speechless. Good guys. How did the rebellious son of Hokage learn to bribe? Who did you learn from? Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 103 Social Investigation Plan. While Haruki and Uchiha Obito had a friendly teacher-student exchange, Tsunade opened his eyes. She froze for a while, and gradually regained consciousness. Soreness appeared everywhere in the body. Even with her physique, she still feels a little weird. Tsunade was lying on the bed and looking at the ceiling, touching his left hand to the other side. There was no clear tree. She finally remembered that this guy seemed to have woke up and left. Fine. Tsunade drew a breath, but didn't finish speaking. The most vulnerable place was hit. Still one night. She bit her lower lip, this guy just wanted to take advantage of her. Tsunade stood up, but fortunately it was summer, and the exposed skin didn't feel cold. She glanced at the red next to her, but a sweet smile appeared. I finally have you. Tsunade tucked the hair around his ears, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Haruki is getting better and better, making her feel strange, but also vaguely afraid. But now after getting married, this worry disappeared. Tsunade lay down for a while, rubbing her eyes with her hands, and her spirits were almost restored. Like Haruki, she went to take a bath first. Otherwise, I feel too uncomfortable. The pattered hot water formed mist. Tsunade poured water, thinking of the sunset glow on his face last night. After a long time, she changed into her clothes, went back to the room, put away the bedding, and put on new ones. After making the bed neat and tidy, she stopped satisfied. He immediately picked up the broom full of enthusiasm and cleaned every corner of the room spotlessly. Tsunade wiped his sweat and suddenly laughed again. Baffling. She patted her face, but smiles kept popping up like bamboo shoots after rain. Tsunade pursed his mouth. Picking up the clothes she changed last night, some of hers and Haruki, and went out of the room. The washing machine used in the past. But today she wants to wash by hand. Tsunade glanced at Haruki's clothes, his face flushed, but then he thought of what clothes people are afraid of after seeing them. She calmly started washing clothes. The sun shone on her somewhat clumsy movements. She has never washed boys' clothes, but she didn't feel tired, but felt like a good wife and mother. Tsunade sighed, washing clothes is not difficult. She came to the balcony and hung up her clothes, finally feeling hungry. Glancing at the time, it was approaching 12 o'clock. Tsunade frowned slightly. Haruki probably went to a ninja school. She opened the refrigerator and saw the breakfast, sushi and milk he had left. Strange combination. Tsunade shook his head, and it was not hot. While biting the sushi, he came to the table and saw the note left by Haruki. HMPH, I have to say it myself, don't you understand? She put away the note, but there was a smile that couldn't hide from the corner of her mouth. Tsunade always feels that Haruki can forgive no matter what she does now. The feelings that have been held for several years are almost formed today, like a good wine. She drank milk after eating sushi and left the room. Akihabara is very lively, but Tsunade didn't have the mood to appreciate, and rushed to school faster than usual. The door of the office rang. Haruki, who was writing at the desk, raised his head, ran to Tsunade immediately, and hugged her before she could speak. Morning. His voice is full of joy and cherishment, and his embrace is also very hard and warm. Tsunade's slight dissatisfaction disappeared. She snorted softly. It's noon. Haruki closed the door and smiled. I didn't see you. This day is not the beginning. Say it nicely. Tsunade's eyes rolled on him, and he sat in the position where Haruki was just now. I don't know who left me and ran. Then this person must be a bastard. Haruki leaned forward, leaning against the table, and said to the underworld without hesitation. Really, can you ask for a face? Tsunade was amused by his hatred expression. I married you, so it doesn't matter what your face is. Haruki shrugged and asked again, have you eaten yet? Eat. Tsunade took out his note. You are too insincere. How about this? Haruki looked down and strolled around her mouth. Reluctantly, Tsunade put away the note with satisfaction, but he didn't let go. 7 times. Haruki stretched out his hands and compared the number to 7. What? Tsunade wondered. Haruki came to her ear and explained a few words. Tsunade glared at him suddenly. No, don't think about these things all day. I want to supervise you. Your health is important. We are already a husband and wife. Isn't this a business matter? If I said no, I just can't. Tsunade reached out and pinched his ears. You have to listen to me after you get married. Okay. Haruki nodded in disappointment. Seeing his expression, Tsunade couldn't help but sipped, and this guy bullied her softheartedly again. She was embarrassed, and whispered, at most 3 times. Huh. Qingshu looked at her subconsciously, and after confirming that he had heard it right, he held her on the cheek excitedly and kissed her. It's disgusting. Tsunade waited for a few seconds, pushing his head away, looking disgusted. Hee. Haruki licked his lips. Anyway, he didn't make a loss in blood. He had a big advantage. He just waited for the night to smear and push the crystal on the high ground. What are you writing? Tsunade picked up the notebook on the desk, Shaw's view of honor and disgrace. Well, I am going to extract a main point of view from our complicated rules and regulations, and discuss and study at a study meeting in the near future. When Haruki saw her talking about this, he explained it. He made a lot of regulations, and worried that some members would not want to read through in the future, so he compiled the main ones into a rhetoric. In addition, there are our organization's purpose, program and implementation plan. I see. Tsunade knew his wish as early as his trip to Sanagakure. It is not very surprising to see these contents now. Haruki watched her serious look and couldn't help but smiled. I haven't finished writing yet. If you have any comments, you can put it forward.
After a moment, Tsunade raised his head. That, can't you gamble? As long as you don't harm the organization, it's fine.
Haruki hurriedly heard her grieving voice. Tsunade was silent, she didn't want Haruki to be embarrassed. I will try to quit. Haruki was startled slightly, and couldn't help kissing her again. Well, really know the generality. Tsunade's mouth was slightly raised, and she felt Haruki's full love for her.
What's the plan? The first step is to completely reverse the thoughts of the members of the organization. We must twist it together. The second step is Minato's military plan. I intend to send him to the country of fire. His talents should not be limited to Konoha. Third step is to help you become Hokage. Haruki didn't hide it either, and told his initial plan.
The longer term cannot be taken care of now. Even for these three, the year must be used as the unit of time to complete.
Take the first step, it is not easy. But fortunately, the members in their organization are very young and easy to accept new ideas. They are not like old antiques in the feudal era, such as Sarutobi Hiruzen. If you tell him this, he will say you deceive the crowd the next moment and pull you.
Go to prison and experience 18-style torture.
Haruki has long understood that it is difficult to truly unravel the feudal thoughts just by saying it. Because it is too high in the air. Moreover, the literacy level of civilians is insufficient. This is why there will be a second step plan. He needs Minato to practice it.
Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 104 New Army. Eat whatever you like, you're welcome.
The name of the name pointed to the dishes on the table, but his eyes were fixed on the dancing in the hall.
The clothing provided by the theme hotel is quite restored. Long chestnut hair was scattered around the waist, until the white skirt covering the long legs. A pair of elves have long and pointed ears, light veil-like wings, and a long white dress like an evening dress, revealing the belly button.
I have never seen such a creature. The daimyo retracted his gaze and couldn't help sighing. No matter how you look at it, I feel pretty. Because she didn't exist in the first place. Haruki smiled, picked up a fried shrimp, took a bite, and the taste was okay.
It would be great if it could exist in reality. The daimyo showed a pity. At this moment, he was like an otaku. Although Haruki didn't expect the daimyo to like Asuna, it wasn't a surprise.
Asuna is considered one of the most popular heroines. The daimyo drank a glass of wine and finally talked about business. Maida Nyan told me that Haruki's property under your name did not pay taxes in accordance with the laws of the country of fire.
Danayan is the fourth-rank official position in the country of fire.
Before answering, I have a question. Haruki was not afraid of the daimyo's identity. Regardless of his strength, his identity didn't need to be too humbly. The daimyo was also clearly clear, his tone was calm, and he didn't express any threats or guilt.
He can sit in this position and naturally understand Konoha's effect on him and the shackles. After all, the fist makes sense. All diplomacy is based on one's own strength. It is not too much to say that the current country of fire is an ATM.
The daimyo knows where he is. Third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, he can still command one or two. But the first two generations of Hokage gave him too much shadow.
What is the problem? There are many Konoha who do business in the country of fire, why do you value me only? Perhaps Haruki, you don't know how much money your industry can make, right?
Hearing this question, the daimyo suddenly smiled and beckoned to bring a book of materials over.
He took a deep breath. This prophet is really jealous. Haruki raised her eyebrows slightly. Unexpectedly, this daimyo did his homework before coming. He flipped through the information casually. In addition to New Konoha Bookstore, it also records the recent status of Jinyu Liangyuan and Akihabara.
The daimyo squinted his eyes and said, "The 2 days of experience makes me believe that you are a rare business wizard. If you can divide the profits into 1 or 2, the country of fire is willing to provide you with enough convenience and save your the industry is extended to every corner, and money will be in full at that time." Haruki suddenly remembered a word. When the profit reaches 300%, they dare to risk hanging. Does this profit go to the daimyo or to the country of fire? Ha ha ha. Daming laughed. It depends on what Haruki said. Why don't we change our mind? Haruki put down the information and said, I remember the 12 ninja guards of the fire country. I recommend a ninja to you in lieu of taxation. The daimyo was startled slightly, then shook his head. I don't need Konoha's ninja, not to mention the current one is enough to protect me. Is it really enough? Haruki asked with a smile, although I don't understand their level, I can't believe it can stop Hokage. Hokage. The daimyo frowned. I don't understand what you mean. Have you never thought of including Kimura in the master? Haruki dangled the glass and asked casually. Huh, the daimyo seemed to wake up from his dream, pretending not to hear clearly, what are you talking about? The ninja I recommend can train a new army for you. Haruki raised the glass, handed it to daimyo, and said softly, the new army that can defeat the ninja alliance. Da Ming's face changed slightly. To say that no idea is naturally false. No ruler wants to have a power that he can't master. Once Konoha has a heart of disobedience, they have no countermeasures. I do not believe. The daimyo took the glass, shook his head after drinking it. Even samurai, it's hard to compete with ninjas. Your so-called new army is even more impossible, unless they are all ninjas. Only ninjas can deal with ninjas. Nothing is wrong under normal circumstances. Haruki stood up and said, if the daimyo is interested, follow me and I will take you to see a baby.
The daimyo pondered for a moment, and Haruki couldn't kill him, so it didn't hurt to go and see. He is really curious what kind of army can fight the ninja. Haruki led him to a building in Akihabara, Shaw's new base.
Of course, the academy of the ninja school is still retained. But some of the more important ones have been transferred.
He wanted to show the daimyo the Skyfire, detonating talisman bullet gun. When Minato Ryu was handing over the fireworks, he told him that a handful of samples had already been made.
Master Haruki. Minato Ryu immediately left the laboratory and went to the waiting room after receiving Haruki's notice. Haruki didn't talk nonsense, give me the Skyfire you made.
Minato Yoshio turned and left, and appeared after a moment. He brought a peculiar miniature crossbow in his hand.
Haruki didn't say much, and came to the dead forest with daimyo. Tianwo has its own driving device, but without chakra, the distance is not very far, only about 300 meters. Try it. Haruki put the device on the daimyo. Is this the baby you're talking about? Daming disagreed, and even thought it was a waste of time.
How do you know if you don't try it? Haruki patted the crossbow lightly and attached chakra to it.
Alright, it's all here, let's see what use this guy does. The daimyo thought about raising his hand and buckling the insurance.
With a slight sound, a crossbow arrow quickly went away. A few seconds later, the daimyo lost his vision. He is just an ordinary person, and being able to see hundreds of meters away is already the limit. That's it. The daimyo looked at Haruki and was about to speak.
A huge roar swept across. The strong wind and waves blew the fan above his head far away, and after a second, he felt that his ears were almost deaf. A fiery red mushroom cloud rose in the distance. Daming was stunned and stared at the mess in front of him.
The head is buzzing. After a long time, he slowly recovered himself, staring at the Skyfire on his wrist, and stopped talking. It's powerful, isn't it? Haruki shrugged. The new army I'm talking about is the army equipped with these weapons. These? The daimyo caught his words. You mean more than Skyfire?
Of course. Haruki nodded. Daming's eyes changed completely. He can imagine how powerful and incredible such an army should be. I don't understand why you want to help me. The daimyo took a deep breath and expressed his doubts. I don't think the so-called tax is comparable to such a weapon, it is simply a weapon that can change history. The reason is simple. Haruki explained. Skyfire's manufacturing cost is extremely high. I want to make a deal with you. You provide raw materials and money, and I will train a new army for you. Daming fell silent upon hearing this. This reason is justified. It also explains why Haruki, as a ninja, is trying to make money.
Haruki didn't care what his purpose was, but Skyfire gave him the courage to fight against ninjas.
I promise you. A smile appeared on the daimyo's face. Haruki also laughed. Some people help themselves raise the army, why not do it?
Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running.
Chapter 105 The Apprentice's Role. Haruki didn't expect it to go so smoothly. He thought it would be more troublesome. But when you think about it, it's a question of thinking in your previous life. He has taken a history class and deeply understands the importance of the army and the necessity of the master's army. But the daimyo did not. In his cognition, this is a world that values blood and identity. He is a great name from birth to death, and will not change because of anything, and no one will jump out and shout, princes and generals, would you rather have a kind? Single quote. Not only him, but the ninja seemed to agree. Take Don't Cut and Cardo for example, the attitude of ordinary people like Cardo to Don't Cut can be described as very arrogant. If it wasn't for the death ambition, he wouldn't kill Cardo if he didn't cut it, but would bear it. It is simply outrageous. You should know that if you don't kill anymore, you killed the ruthless man in the same class because of the exam, and even assassinated Mizukage.
According to saying, this kind of force can directly kill Cardo and seize wealth. Haruki took back his thoughts and changed his mind to the original work, so he could understand daimyo's approach.
He only thinks that Haruki provides weapons and instructor, and the command and control of the army still belong to the country of fire. But he didn't know the terrible nature of the army's mutiny, nor the power of new ideas. Shingshu left the theme hotel. After a while, he will take Namikaze Minato to the metropolis of fire country.
The reason why he didn't go there immediately was because it took time for the daimyo to build an army, and because Namikaze Minato also took time to make changes.
In addition, Haruki has another idea. Let Namikaze Minato take Uchiha Makoto and Uzumaki Kushina. And he informed the people of Cloud Shinobi Village. According to the current time period, it is almost time for Cloud Shinobi Village to abduct Kushina. In the original book, Namikaze Minato rescued Kushina. He wanted to add another Makoto to see if she could enable Mangekyo Sharingan. In terms of age, she is enough, 17 years old this year. Haruki vaguely remembers that Uchiha Itachi was opened at about 13 years old.
But just being caught is not enough stimulation. Haruki intends to join forces with Minato to create a scenario of suspended animation.
Minato. Haruki knocked on the door and said, "At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the teacher invites you to have tea." What? Minato showed his upper body in doubt. Haruki had never invited him for afternoon tea.
Go to my house. Haruki didn't explain too much either. Minato nodded when he heard the words, closed the door, and followed him home.
Try it. Haruki brought out a plate of bright pastries and poured him a cup of black tea. Thank you, teacher. Minato is a little uncomfortable. It seems that this is the first time he has had tea with Haruki alone. He used to have at least Makoto and Kushina.
He picked up a piece of pastry, ate it a few times, picked up the teacup, and took 2 sips.
Teacher, if you have anything, just talk about it. Minato couldn't bear the strange atmosphere, wiped the corners of his mouth, and asked quickly. Yes, it's about the 12 ninja guardians of the Land of Fire and the new army instructor. Haruki explained the details of the deal with the daimyo in detail, and finally added, your current strength is already Jonin, and the end of the war will usher in a peaceful time, so I hope you go to the country of fire. Quote. If he remembered correctly, there was a buffer of several years between the Second Ninja War and the Third Ninja War. Such an opportunity should naturally not be wasted. Minato obviously didn't expect it. After listening to Haruki's words, he fell into deep thought. Judging from the content of the description, his task is actually quite heavy.
It is not a simple matter to turn this new army of the Nation of Fire into the army of the Sha organization. It is necessary to fight against the daimyo and the nobles, but also to find a way to gradually unify the thinking of the new army. But Minato is not a ninja who is afraid of difficulties.
In the original book, it almost changed the ending of the Third Ninja World War with one's own power. In terms of resourcefulness and ability, it is definitely the top batch. If there is no knowledge of the previous life, Haruki is far inferior. After all, he is just a citizen of an ordinary flower grower. All he learned came from school. I can try. Minato scratched his head, but I'm not absolutely sure. If you agree 100%, I won't worry about it. Haruki glanced at him and said with a smile, if you fail, don't blame yourself, I'm just trying.
Okay, teacher. Minato breathed a sigh of relief. Since the teacher said so, he didn't worry about going for it. Well, I will tell you something about the army while I have time, first of all training methods.
Haruki flipped through the knowledge in his head, partly from his military training at the university and partly from the movies and TV series he had watched.
Unlike the training of ninjas, the most important thing in the army is the prohibition.
According to him, ninjas are special forces. Of course, the discipline of ninjas in this world is not as good as these soldiers in the modern army. Minato listened to Haruki's strange training method. If it weren't because he trusted Haruki enough, he would only think that this person was faulty.
Can the army be trained just by lining up and shouting slogans? He could not understand, but what the teacher said should be correct.
He has learned to practice the truth. If it is just because a person's words are different from his own perception, and he subconsciously refutes it, then his progress is quite limited. Minato's approach is to learn and find ways to improve. Just like after he learned Flying Thunder God and Rasengan, he began to think about how to better combine and develop more postures. Oh no, ninjutsu.
After talking about the army, there is one more thing.
Haruki hesitated and planned Kushina to be kidnapped. Of course, Kushina was the most sorry. He didn't want this lovely apprentice to suffer such hardships in vain.
However, she needs a special thing to notice Minato's excellence and intentions.
In fact, she should be aware of it, but she can't tell which is friendship or love. The other reason is that Mangekyo Sharingan is too outrageous to open. You must witness the death of your loved ones. According to Makoto's character, either let her parents come, or let Kushina, Minato or herself come.
But Makoto knows that Minato and him possess the Flying Thunder God technique, which is prone to doubts. I will let Makoto and Kushina follow you when I go to the metropolis of Fire Country.
Seeing the surprise on his face, Haruki couldn't help but smile. At the same time, I hope you can do something for me. While Minato was a little dumbfounded, he talked about his plan.
It's actually very simple. He informed the Cloud Shinobi village spy about Rouge Sinai's whereabouts in advance. Judging from the performance of the Abbey group last time, they're quite interested in Kushina, but Kushina has been in Konoha. Now she is heading to the Land of Fire, and there will be many opportunities on the way.
Rest assured, Kushina will never suffer any harm, just some fright.
After Haruki got Sage Body in Sage Mode, he was sure to say such words. Minato nodded slowly. He is not a pedantic person.
If the end result is as Haruki said, he is naturally willing to cooperate.
Minato. Haruki patted him on the shoulder and said earnestly, after things are revealed, you, as an apprentice, have to bear more. Minato was silly on the spot. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running.
Chapter 106. Kaui, 33 years old, lives in the Konoha Shinobi Hospital and works as a medical supplies dispatcher in the logistics department. He commutes regularly every day, very regularly. On the surface, it is a common and ordinary staff member, but secretly, it is the undercover agent of Cloud Shinobi Village. 3 years and 3 years, until now, it has not been discovered.
The reason why Kaoi became an undercover agent at the beginning was not because of his identity as a medical ninja, but because of his natural white skin, which withstood the harsh sunlight of Cloud Shinobi Village without turning black.
It's not that he doesn't like Big Sister Black, but unfortunately he was selected and sent to Konoha to become an undercover agent. Fortunately, the time is about the same. As long as you come back a few times to make great contributions, you will have the opportunity to return to Cloud Shinobi Village. After entering the comprehensive office area of the Hokage building, Kaoi smiled and said hello all the way to the logistics department.
After he entered the door, he noticed an unfamiliar colleague. Kaoi sniffed his nose, and his keen intuition made him discover that this man was not easy.
Like Anbu or Roots, he has lived here for 6 years and has known these two departments best.
After all, if you miss, you will be caught by them. It stands to reason that Anbu or the Root Ninja will not come to the logistics department.
Unless it is laid off and re-employed. Kaoi suddenly remembered the sensation Konoha some time ago and also shocked all the undercover agents, and the Roots disbanded. The undercover of them all agreed that someone was behind them.
They have never seen that kind of scene of 10,000 people. But unfortunately no one found any trace. Regardless of this, Kaoi thanked him very much. Knowing that the undercover is in Konoha, the most feared are the Roots and Shimura Danzo.
Now that the Roots have stopped activities, it is really convenient for them. It's just that Anbu is still unaffected, or something big can happen.
Kaoi did not contact him immediately. Returning to his seat, combined with a lot of information, it was determined that this new colleague named Matsuoka Nan originally belonged to the Roots.
But it was relatively marginal and had no record, and was assigned to the logistics department. Kaoi quickly got acquainted with him through work.
As an undercover agent, you can't let go of any clues. It is usually difficult for him, and he does not dare to contact the Root personnel. He intends to try his luck. So on Saturday, he was invited to eat and drink at the barbecue restaurant in the name of welcoming new colleagues.
Come, Songgang, drink. In the private room, the atmosphere is strong. Kaoi raised his glass and enthusiastically pulled Matsuoka. His face turned red from the wine, but the person on the other side was obviously overwhelmed by the wine and became more serious, and his entire face was flushed.
I tell you, I admire my colleagues at the Root most, mighty Haki.
Kaoi flattered while pouring wine. Soon Songgang Nan was floating. Brother Songgang, can you tell me something about the Roots? Seeing that the time was right, Kaoi started to talk. Unfortunately, for various reasons, I did not join the Roots as I wished. I hope the Songgang brothers can realize my dream. Good. Songgang man ate a piece of barbecue and started talking.
He was depressed by the dissolution of the Roots.
After all, becoming the Root, even the most marginal, is quite daunting, and he enjoys this look. But now he has been transferred to the logistics department and there is no such opportunity again. Now that he has met a colleague who worships the Roots, he has to talk about his heroic past. Kaoi soon felt speechless. That's it. Sure enough, he was a marginal figure, and he didn't even know as much. No wonder it came to the logistics department. There is a saying that the logistics department is an elderly care department.
One can imagine how unwelcome Songgang Nan is. Are there any more? Kaoi was not satisfied, and continued to ask.
Yes, the Songgang man poured a glass of wine and told another story. Kaoi's expression shrank slightly, and he heard Uzumaki Kushina's name.
Because of the Second Ninja War, Haruki's 3 apprentices all gained different fame. Namikaze Minato is the largest, followed by Uchiha Makoto, and finally the survivor of the Uzumaki clan.
I heard that her sealing technique is good. But it is limited to this. Uzumaki Kushina is Haruki-sama's apprentice. It seems that your Roots are very concerned about her. Why? Ah. Hiccup. Matsuoka heard his question and lowered his voice. I tell you, you can't tell others. I heard one of my colleagues revealed that she is now a candidate for Konoha Ninetales Jinchuriki.
Kaoi's body was shaken suddenly. Big news. His chance for promotion and fortune came. Before Namikaze Minato and the 3 go to the metropolis of Fire Country, Haruki still has one big thing to do. Study meeting. Give lessons to members of the Shaw organization. After a few days of preparation, he has finished the textbook for the first lesson. It's another sunny day. Under the blue sky, a sail was drifting quietly. Before class, Haruki told the Minato trio that they would be able to go to the metropolis of Fire Country in 2 days. Minato had been notified in advance, so naturally the calmest. Because of his personality, Makoto has no resistance to going out to perform tasks. On the contrary, Kushina reacted most intensely, not unwilling, but too happy. She has long wanted to go out and play. Okay, let's go to class next. Haruki patted Kushina's head and told her to sit down without jumping around. Okay. Kushina converged in time and returned to Makoto obediently. On such a serious occasion, she can still tell the difference. Haruki knocked on the table, attracting everyone's attention. Before today, he had never directly answered the real reason for the establishment of the Shaw organization.
One is that he is afraid that the revolutionary concept is too superb in this world, and the other is that he is also afraid that he will make mistakes in the process of communicating and be ashamed of the great man. But he also understands that if he doesn't explain, the problem will always exist. The more you argue, the more obvious you are. Haruki now prides itself on being able to get back on track even if there is a deviation.
What is even more cruel is that wars will continue to be staged in the future. I was not born in Konoha, but an ordinary family in the country of fire.
In the days of displacement, I have seen too many innocent people lost their lives and relatives because of ninjas. But in this life I have seen the so-called hell on earth. But are other things really irrelevant to us? Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running.
It was the first time Haruki talked about his past.
In addition, there are influences from traditional culture. In his previous life, he was a flower planter. Fortunately, he had not experienced war and could not truly understand the cruelty of war.
Haruki's florist education and modern thinking gave him revolutionary ideas.
As early as the first conference organized by Shaw, I said that the purpose of our organization is to give everyone an equal opportunity. These cruel pictures will never forget me. Ninjas obviously have more powerful power, but why are they always contributing to the killing? Quote.
I know you have more or less doubts in your minds. Why are we doing this? We are all ninjas. Logically speaking, we only need to abide by the ninja rules and complete tasks.
He was supposed to be a businessman or a farmer, but because of the last ninja war, his family was destroyed. Like most flower growers, he also had a vision of, the poor will be good for oneself, and the great will benefit the world. They could not resist and died tragically. Chapter 107 Shaw Organization Guidelines.
When Haruki paused for a while, everyone underneath also had different thoughts.
The experiences of Oshima Yoshiyuki, Okitomo, and Hira Shinji are similar to those of Haruki, so they can understand them best. Hyuga Hiyashi didn't take it seriously. He was a typical ninja thinking. He understood what Haruki said, but he didn't quite agree with it.
Everyone sweeps the snow on his own, but he cares about the frost on others.
A ninja must look like a ninja. It is really unnecessary to make gold jewelry and diamonds instead of performing the task. Had it not been for Haruki and the interests of the Hyuga family were not involved, Hyuga Hiyashi would not have appeared here. Haruki naturally understood Hyuga Hiyashi's mind. The reason why he let him join the organization also has this consideration.
He wanted to try the role of the study meeting. Teacher, how should we do this?
Namikaze Minato broke the silence in a timely manner and asked key questions, which was also the main content of the study meeting. Revolution. Haruki took a deep breath and said seriously, what is a revolution? It is to overthrow the mountains, feudal and aristocratic oppression that hinder social development, and replace the backward production relations with advanced production relations, chakra and science, and finally realize. To reach the new world where everyone has something to use, everyone has equal opportunities, distribution according to work, distribution according to needs. After he finished speaking, the boat fell into dead silence again. Everyone looked at Haruki with shocked and surprised eyes. Although they had learned a little from Haruki, they had never been as clear as this moment.
The word revolution is really appropriate. If they really do what Haruki said, then their current world will be completely shattered and reorganized, ushering in a new world. Namikaze Minato's blood surged, his fists kept clenching and opening.
He understood the significance of being an instructor in the new army, and also understood what he was going to do.
He is a humble spark, but he is about to ignite a fire that will burn the world. Never stop, never go out. Hyuga Hiyashi stood up suddenly. His expression was a little flustered. Master Haruki, I want to ask a question.
You say, is my Hyuga house considered the feudal nobleman you are talking about? This is a good question. Haruki smiled, took out a blackboard, and wrote a sentence on it.
Who is our enemy? Do you think Hyuga's family is our enemy?
No, Hyuga Hiyashi answered without thinking. Although their Hyuga family did not have the ambitions of Haruki, he thought he would not kill innocents for no reason. Except for a few tribesmen, most people did not do anything harmful to the world. Anyone who agrees with our philosophy is our friend, even if it is only verbal, but standing in the oppression of civilians, it is naturally our enemy. Our cause is destined to require more people to join, and we must unite all the forces that can be united. Quote.
Haruki looked at Hyuga Hiyashi, and his ability to ask this question meant that he understood a lot.
As long as he is drawn into the camp, he can set an example. The revolution is not against the world, but from the standpoint of most people. Our Shaw organizes business and economics. One is to accumulate startup capital, and the other is to make friends and show them that our business is to enable everyone common benefits, rather than letting the so-called aristocracy enjoy it alone.
Hyuga Hiyashi nodded slowly. For someone else, he might think it's a fantasy. But Haruki's feeling is too different, so when I heard his last words, I couldn't help but feel worried.
Because the Hyuga family is also a nobleman in a sense.
If you still have doubts, you can understand it by participating in a few more study sessions. Seeing his solemn expression, Haruki couldn't help but smiled. Next, let Tsunade teach everyone. The topic is why we should help civilians, which can be regarded as a supplementary explanation of what I just said. He turned to look at Tsunade and blinked at her to relieve her tension.
Tsunade gave him a blank look. Didn't you heard it?
She really didn't know that Haruki would have such a speech, which made her preparations a bit thin. But he checked it in advance and there should be no problem.
Haruki sat down and gave the stage to Tsunade. Although what she said is simple, it can actually be used as an introduction to revolutionary theory. It was a little disjointed at first, but it became more and more smooth in the back. Except for Haruki, everyone else also had a better view of her. To be honest, like Hyuga Hiyashi, he thought that Tsunade was able to join the Shaw organization because of Haruki. But now it seems that my views are too shallow. Tsunade did give them a big surprise. Haruki looked at her with a smile. The serious look is beautiful and pretty.
Quite a serious aura of the teacher, but a little unnatural can be vaguely seen.
Thanks. Tsunade held the textbook and bowed, and she felt relaxed after she finished speaking. I spent a few months in the medical class, which shouldn't be the case, but this class is too unusual.
She looked at Haruki who was applauding, and she couldn't help but feel connected. Now that they are husband and wife, they are also partners on the same front. I will make a brief summary. What Tsunade said is summed up in one sentence, which is to come from the masses and go to the masses. Haruki stood up, the applause stopped, and he said,
Our Shaw organization pays attention to applying what they have learned. After today's study meeting, all members will be assigned to frontline positions in each store, requesting that no ninjutsu is used, and an experience report will be submitted after the end. After hearing this, everyone nodded without saying anything. The first study meeting ended in this way. Haruki stopped Namikaze Minato. Makoto and Kushina will not stay for long in this trip to the metropolis of Fire Country, only Minato may stay for several years. Minato, you go to train the new army. They are not ninjas. Most of them are civilians who are forced to conscript.
Haruki looked at Minato who was listening attentively and said, Civilians rarely have the opportunity to be educated. You should never talk about them or instill theoretical knowledge like today's study session. Instead, you should practice and express the truth with actions.
There are many reasons why he chose Minato. One is his origin, which means that he cannot be as proud as the Uchiha clan. The second is his character, serious and cautious. The third is that since he can listen to Haruki's words, he can absorb and think, not just studying hard. There is no doubt that Minato is the teacher's favorite kind of student.
I see, teacher. Minato nodded. Well, in this study session, you, Makoto and Kushina will be in the land of fire, so you can better understand the real lives of civilians.
Haruki thought of their plan again, and added, Hiroshinji told me that he has passed the news, and Cloud Shinobi Village should take action in the past few days. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running.
Chapter 108 Sage Transformation Spell Seal. After the study meeting, Uchiha Makoto handed in a qualified meeting minutes and summary. Haruki was very satisfied with her growth. His current 3 apprentices, except Uzumaki Kushina, should be regarded as active members of the organization in their previous lives. 2 years of further study will be able to catch up with him. Taking this opportunity, Haruki asked about Uchiha Fugaku again.
I have had contact, but it's just some preliminary ideas. I can see that he is willing to change Uchiha. Makoto's answer reminded Haruki of Fugaku in the original work.
He is a qualified and unqualified leader. Rejected the request of the tribe to run for the 4th generation. Did not take back Sharingan of Kakashi. When he was relocated, he calmed the dissatisfaction of the tribe. Before the rebellion, he became the leader because he could not stop it.
But he concealed Mangekyo Sharingan, and because his son gave up resistance, the Uchiha clan was destroyed. How can I say that Fugaku has both the maintenance of Konoha's peace and the love of his wife and children, but it lacks courage and means to swing between Uchiha and Konoha? But he didn't care about some of what I said. Makoto's voice turned and frowned. He still retains Uchiha's unique pride in his bones. Unless one day my strength surpasses him, I can smash his pride, Uchiha's first genius. I believe you will surpass him soon. No. Makoto shook his head lightly. The heaviness on his face was not reduced by half. Fugaku's talent is higher than me. It is not a simple thing to want to surpass him.
According to normal circumstances, Makoto really cannot surpass Fugaku. But with his intervention, the result is unpredictable. Haruki patted her on the shoulder and said, Let's go, Minato and Kushina are waiting for you.
Today is their day of departure. The metropolis of Fire Country is far away from Konoha, and Minato's current chakra is not enough to use such flying thunder god technique to transfer. Haruki asked the 3 of them to run for the reason of experiencing life. Teacher, won't you go with us? Kushina couldn't help asking when seeing Haruki standing in place. Go, but I want to observe the practice of the study meeting organized by the members of the next summer. When you get halfway, I will be able to catch up. Haruki waved his hand and said, Be careful on the road. Hearing his answer, Kushina waved happily in response, pulling Makoto away. Teacher, I'm leaving now. Minato nodded slightly and caught up with the 2 sisters in time. Haruki looked at the backs of the 3 people, and made seals at will, and a wood clone suddenly appeared and disappeared. He turned back to Konoha. As he said, he wants to check whether the members are doing what he ordered. Yoshiyuki Oshima went straight to the field and started farm work. Oki Kai, incarnate as a reporter, walks the streets of Konoha to collect news. Ping Shinji, it is a little bit more troublesome. As a member of the Roots, he can only take time out and use the transformation technique to actually get into the ranks of the newspaper salesman in the orphanage.
Tsunade took Hyuga Kaoru and became a carver of the Golden Jade Marriage. She is a top medical ninja, and her control of chakra is not inferior to any Hyuga ninja driving by a Kugan. Hyuga Hiyashi also got married, but he was not a carver, but a janitor, serving as a bodyguard.
After Haruki glanced around, the result was quite satisfactory.
1 or 2 days maybe to complete his task, but in the long run, they will definitely gain something.
As for himself, he also has a job, becoming a guinea pig in Orochimaru's laboratory.
Your genes seem to have been strengthened again. Orochimaru looked at the gene extracted from Haruki and couldn't help being a little surprised. It stands to reason that such a change is impossible.
I learned Sage Mode. Haruki probably understood the reason, it was Sage Body. Of course he can't say that, after all, there is no way to explain the source, but Sage Mode can learn. Sage Mode. Orochimaru was startled slightly, his expression changed, aren't you not talented to learn Sage Mode? Both he and Haruki's summoning beasts came from the 3 holy sites, and they were naturally qualified to learn Sage Mode, but they had no talent after trying them. Who knows? Maybe it's because of marriage. Haruki said with a shrug. Quote. Orochimaru was speechless. What does this have to do with marriage? Isn't a single dog worthy of school?
I'll show you. Haruki took a deep breath, natural energy injected into his body, black stripes appeared on the corners of his eyes, and a small black circle on his forehead.
It turned out to be Sage Mode. Orochimaru watched the changes in Haruki's body and couldn't help licking his tongue, which aroused his desire to study. He was quite coveted for Shanshu. Do you really want to study?
Haruki felt his gaze, smiled slightly, and asked.
What, are you willing to study it for me? There was a strange look in Orochimaru's eyes. You are not normal today, if there is something to say directly. Sage Transformation Spell Seal. Haruki talked about the curse seal made by Orochimaru transplanting Shigogo's Sage Transformation ability in the original work. He has always believed that although this kind of curse has sequelae, it is extremely useful for some ninjas with limited talents.
Can be used as a killer in the face of death. After all, I'm about to die, but I still care about the sequelae.
According to Yakushi Kabuto and Shigego, cursing is also a type of Sage Mode. But it's certainly not perfect, and its own Sage Mode has almost no flaws, maybe it can be done. Anyway, you won't lose a try. If you agree, then I will let you study Sage Mode for free.
Haruki looked at Orochimaru thoughtfully and said, what do you think? Can. Orochimaru didn't think about it for too long, mainly because there were too few ninjas who knew Sage Mode, and it was impossible for him to study.
But the premise is to complete the wood-style experiment. Haruki looked at a male clone on the test bench. At this moment, he was already overgrown with various branches.
Obviously there was rejection. Because of Haruki, Orochimaru made a clone in advance.
The clone has no soul or mind, and it is not as frantic as the original Orochimaru uses a baby. Although your genes and cells are not as domineering as Senju Hashirama, it is not easy for ordinary people to bear.
Orochimaru has no mood swings about failure, and after you learn Sage Mode, it seems that there is a tendency to approach Senju Hashirama cells. Haruki twitched at the corner of his mouth, but he didn't expect to interfere with the experiment.
But it doesn't matter, as long as you find a balance point, you can succeed. Orochimaru glanced at him and said, besides, Tsunade's physique is stronger than ordinary ninjas, so don't worry too much.
Haruki nodded. What else do I need to do? You? Orochimaru took out 10 syringes. I extracted 10 tubes of gene fluid by myself.
Quote. Haruki looked at Orochimaru, who was expressionless, always feeling that this guy was deliberate. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running.
Chapter 109 Group Number, and thank you readers, thank you very much for your comments. The content of my 2 weeks is indeed too plain, with a lot of daily routines, and there are problems with the cohesion and rhythm of the plot. In conjunction with the editor in charge, I made some modifications.
Mainly the wedding was changed to an engagement, and 4 or 5 chapters of daily life were deleted. You don't have to worry about the impact. The main line remains the same, and the sweetness of Haruki and Tsunade will not change. As long as the wedding is postponed, it will still be the eunuch. The reason why I made the change after thinking about it for a long time is that a lot of readers have disappeared after the wedding. If there is a big guy who cancels the collection because of this, I am deeply sorry. This is indeed my inability, sorry everyone. In the later episodes, I will speed up the rhythm. In addition, I saw some big guys saying that the protagonist is progressing too fast and he is almost invincible. This is how I think. If you are engaged in farming construction, invincible text is more convenient to start the plot. The last group number is 711,483,309, to verify the low water singer. Welcome everyone to come in and chat. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 110 Mangekyo Sharingan. After leaving the Orochimaru laboratory, Haruki felt good.
Since having Sage Body, his resilience is amazing. Although he hasn't tried it, he thinks he should be comparable to aromatic phosphorus.
So just 10 stitches is nothing. However, after being kicked out, there was a bit of nothing to do for a while. Haruki thought for a while and came to the ninja school. Youth is to score goals and never stop. He heard the familiar voice from afar, and looked up to see Might Guy and Kakashi facing each other on the basketball court.
Guy looked excited and set off a green whirlwind on the court. But Kakashi felt a sense of inefficiency all over his body.
It seems that like the original, he was forced to become Guy's lifelong enemy. Haruki couldn't help but smile. Kakashi, a handsome guy like Kakashi, met Guy, and his painting style couldn't be maintained.
It was terrifying. In this regard, Haruki can only wish Kakashi good luck.
But he did not find Uchiha Obito. Speaking of Namikaze Minato, the three of them are going to the land of fire, and no one has taught him yet. Where did this guy go? Haruki raised his fingers, and chakra felt the spread. Obito has his own diamond kunai. He soon spotted him in the third exercise field. Perform body flicker technique. Obito caught his eye. At this moment, he is standing on the river, making seals with his hands. Fire style great fireball technique. Obito opened his mouth, and a great fireball with a diameter of about 1 meter appeared. It swept across the water, setting off waves of aerosol, and finally landed on the flat ground in the distance, exploding a large dark pit. Ha ha ha, Obito laughed. It worked, but handsome in only 3 seconds. He was overwhelmed and the great fireball technique consumed a lot of his chakra. The control at his feet was unstable, and he immediately thumped and fell into the river. However, he seemed to have gotten used to it. After falling into the water, he swam ashore without any panic.
Obito shook the water on his body, then lit the fallen leaves with fire style and began to dry the clothes. He took out a set of clothes from his bag and changed it, and finally noticed Haruki.
Teacher, did you see it? With that, Obito was a little shy. Quote. Haruki couldn't help but complain, what do I see you kid doing?
Obito scratched his head and asked, Teacher, what are you doing here? It looks like your recent training results are good. Haruki sat across from him, and he also heard a report from the substitute teacher about Obito's current situation.
Either studying or training, even the communication with Rin Nohara is much less than before, but the physical communication with Kakashi has increased. Kakashi thinks the pressure is very high. Guy plus Obito, 2 idiots in his mouth.
Haruki couldn't help but think of a word, a woman will only affect the speed at which I draw my sword.
But he knew that Obito was not because his feelings for Rin Nohara diminished, but because he became more mature. He had abandoned the lowest level methods and used funny things to attract her attention. Ms. Minato and Sister Makoto taught well. Obito rarely heard Haruki's praise and couldn't help smiling, but he spoke very modestly.
I originally planned to take you out for summer vacation, but it might be stranded because of the honeymoon, but don't worry, I will let another famous ninja replace me.
Frozen, Obito's eyes lit up, but Haruki didn't go, his pressure was not so great. Who is it? Hatake Tsukumo. What? Obito thought he had heard it wrong. He didn't think it was Konoha's White Fang at all, but then he realized one thing.
Kakashi going too? Yes. Obito's face was a little broken. He thought it was a 2-person world with Rin Nohara, but he didn't expect it to be a 3-person movie. At that time, I will let Hatake Tsukumo do additional training on your physical skills, don't let Kakashi look down on you. Of course not. Speaking of Kakashi, Obito immediately abandons the previous decadence just like a chicken blood.
What a kid. Haruki couldn't help but smile. Although Hatake is famous for swordsmanship, as a leader among Jonin, the others are not too bad. Obito is more than enough to teach Obito. As for how to get him to agree to lead the team, it's very simple. Just post a task. In addition, the two of them can be regarded as deadly friendship. This is something Hatake Shuma will not refuse to come. Haruki also had another thought. Let Hatake and Kakashi deepen the relationship between father and son.
If there are so-called suicides in the future, at least Kakashi can persuade him to come back. However, with his intervention, it may not happen again. Haruki's mind moved slightly, and the wood clone, who followed the Minato trio, sent a message back.
So after bidding farewell to Obito, Flying Thunder God technique unfolded, space changed, and he appeared in a forest. The open space in the distance. Minato is lighting a fire, Makoto has no trace, it should be hunting, and Kushina is holding the little fox. Haruki turned his head and looked to the other side, a ninja dressed in Cloud Shinobi village was also making a fire. The invisible aroma diffuses. The little fox suddenly jumped off and ran towards the forest. Hey, wait for me. Kushina quickly got up to catch up.
Minato was about to speak, and immediately realized that something was still there. Haruki sniffed. The scent seemed to be specifically aimed at foxes, a bit like catnip's attraction to cats.
It's smart enough. He watched this Cloud Shinobi transform into his appearance, and he couldn't help sighing, and he was fully prepared. Teacher. Kushina didn't doubt it for the first time, because she saw the little fox eating his barbecue.
Kushina. Cloud Shinobi showed Haruki's iconic smile. I also said that the little fox who followed you was recognized by this little fox. Since it's here, let's try it. With that, he handed out a skewer of barbecue. Thank you, teacher.
Kushina took a bite and looked startled. This smells wrong. You. The next moment, she felt dizzy. Haruki Yukian summoned a wood clone to follow Kushina and the 3 Cloud Shinobi who appeared.
Where is Kushina? Makoto came back with 2 white rabbits. She was bored and ran out with the little fox. Minato took the little white rabbit in her hand, opened his mouth and processed it.
But after a while, Makoto felt a little uneasy. She stood up and asked, "Why haven't you come back?" Minato was startled slightly, and was surprised in time.
Let's go and see. He put down the little white rabbit, followed Kushina's direction, and found the remaining fire and the fainted little fox. It's poison. After Makoto checked the little fox, his face changed drastically. Kushina was caught. Look separately, the fire is hot, it shouldn't go far. Minato made a decisive decision, looked for a direction, and ran away.
And Makoto changed another way. A few minutes later, she saw Kushina lying in a pool of blood. Fear surged in my heart. She trembled and stretched out her hand.
Without any breathing, the heart stopped beating. His head went blank for a moment, and a wave of anger rushed into his heart.
The eyes were chilly, 3 Guyu appeared, and the cold breath of frozen human bone marrow spread with the tyranny in her heart. The surrounding land was shattered in an instant.
Makoto was like a beast that devoured people at the moment. But her perception told her that there was no one around her. Emotions cannot be released. She just felt that the whole world was bloody. Makoto closed his eyes and hugged Kushina, silently killing him, like a sign of a storm.
Haruki smiled wryly and rubbed his forehead. What should I say later? But after waiting for a long time, he still didn't notice chakra exploding on Makoto. It stands to reason that after awakening Mangekyo Sharingan, her chakra should rise sharply. Did it fail? Haruki hesitated for a moment and then sighed. Is it really so difficult to start Mangekyo Sharingan? He walked in front of Makoto. Makoto. Makoto heard a familiar voice and raised his head.
Haruki was able to see her eyes. Sambuyu. He knelt down, patted Kushina, and the body disappeared. This is just a clone. Kushina is not dead.
Makoto opened her mouth and suddenly understood the truth. She lowered her head. Is it the same trick as the original eye-opening illusion? Sorry. Haruki stretched out his hand, but was caught by Makoto the next moment. He couldn't help being shocked. Makoto's eyes were spinning rapidly at this moment, and the 3 goblets were connected together, showing the shape of a triangular shield knife. Teacher, don't lie to me next time. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running.